After a few technical difficulties, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
7 o'clock restart.
You can't talk to us for 3 minutes. The entire city council and plugging it back in again.
Every time it's 7.
Great time for an update, Heather. Oh, while we have this intermission, I'll see if I can get a photo. Feels like it was forever ago now.
It's going to be a while. Y'all can talk amongst yourselves.
So these are not necessarily in a great order, but this was the sunset, which is so cool because obviously you're there. Here's me at the summit. This is looking at here.
I did hear you.
That's Attitash, I think, the ski area. Those are the trails. Yep. So let's see. Yeah, we just hung out for the sunset. That's what mountain. That's the highest point. The next highest point is in North Carolina. That's the top of the observatory. So 6,288 plus that. There's the top, and then I was like, all right, well, I might as well take a video. Yeah, oh yeah. It wasn't actually too bad. That's where I slept. This is like the hangout area where you have the whole thing. And so I think we're kind of actually going backwards now.
But where do I do that?
Yeah, this was on the way down toward, that's Lake of the Clouds hut.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't look like anything when you're here, and then you're like, oh, is that a rock? It's
Yeah,
not.
you know,
That's the crew. I did it with a group of folks, which was fun. And my kids' initials, because of course you need that. There was some butt sliding happening. Oh yeah, and then of course I'm buying skis because that's what as one done. So it was really fun. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
All right. Clerk Sullivan, if you would call the roll.
The City Council meeting, April 27th. Councilors Eid.
Here.
Councilor Callahan.
Here.
Councilor Cameron.
Here.
Councilor Delay.
Here.
Councilor Hall.
Here.
Councilor Harmon.
Here.
Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor Nikotich.
Here.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor Truck. Here. Councilor Shan.
Here.
11 present.
All right, public comment. For those online, please raise your hand while the clerk is getting the sheet from the door. I see one hand up for public comment online. We'll have one from online, and that will be Nancy Caswell. We'll do the in-person first, though. So, for in-person, we have Sharon Harns and Lowell Barrett, 112 High Street. You have name, address, and 2 minutes to speak on an item on the agenda.
Hi, Sharon Harris, Lowell Barrett, my husband.
112 High Street. We're just concerned about the pole that was proposed in front of our yard.
105 State Street.
Yep, and basically, it looks like it's heading underground in that direction. And we just wanted to make a comment that, you know, it just seems kind of new to the game, but here we are on a second meeting, and you have the same issues again. Maybe, I don't want to come across as a, you know, the wrong way, but maybe we need to look at a comprehensive plan. Because the power company have safety issues, and they have to, and we have growing power needs. So this problem is not going to go away. So maybe we need to have some kind of comprehensive plan to put these utilities underground, because what is it, 1,200 volts for a 3-phase, and then it steps down to 480 to feed these houses? They're very dangerous, and they have real concerns. So, but you know, it's we're playing with a lot, and putting it on the ground is the safest way to do it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say we support the updated plan for 105 State Street, and thank you for the Public Safety Works Committee for recommending that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Anita Greenwood.
Good evening. I'm Anita Greenwood and I live at 151 High Street in the old Kelly School. And I'm also a park commissioner, and I'm here to ask for your support for the 5 projects that the Park Commission has put forward. The multi-sport court, which is at Lower Atkinson, which is for pickleball and for basketball, completes the 3rd phase and the final phase of the restoration of Lower Atkinson. Then we've got a new Woodman Park parking area. We've got replaced brickwork in Street in Patrick Tracy Square, and we have fencing at the Jason Sawyer Playground. But most importantly, I'd like to speak about the Frog Pond at Bartlett Mall. I want you to imagine the future where we have a fence, an unsightly fence around the water, where people cannot walk down to the water and enjoy that part of the park, where people can't take their pets, where we can't have the Lantern Festival, where we can't have other events at Bartlett Park Mall because of the public health hazard that is likely to occur for Bartlett Mall Frog Pond if we don't do anything. Imagine that future. Now, we know that the Frog Pond does have an overgrowth of cyanobacteria, it has toxins, and it has heavy metals. And we know that this is a health risk to humans and to wildlife. This isn't a maintenance issue. This isn't about aesthetics. This is about public health. And it's sitting right in the center of our city, and it's sitting right by our first universally accessible playground. More children and parents are coming to Bartlett Mall than ever before. So doing nothing is not an option. Delaying is not saving money. You know construction always goes up. This council has the power to restore the pond or condemn it for future generations.
Thank you, Ms. Greenwood. Next on the list is Mark Spencer.
Hi, Mark Spencer, 15 Barton Street, also Water and Sewer Commission, but I'm not here as a member of the Water and Sewer Commission. My business is water. I own a water quality instrumentation company, and I live water. And ever since I've walked by Frog Pond for the first time 8 years ago, I thought, man, what a beautiful pond. Wouldn't it be awesome to fix that up as it was? By the way, the first thing I thought was, why don't you turn on the fountain? It would be awesome. That's for another day. There is a plan, I understand, and I've read about it, to remediate the pond by dredging, withdrawing the water, capping it, and putting a filtration system. It's going to be beautiful if you do that. It will work. It's $5.2 million, but I guarantee you it will work. I know of a technology, however, that can do the job and remediate it for approximately or less than $100,000. It's a technology that uses a natural method of circulating the water, aerating it, and what that does, it oxidizes all the organic content, converts it to carbon dioxide, and drives it into the air. And eventually, very quickly, in a few weeks, that 2 feet of sediment will be reduced down to almost nothing. Will it work perfectly? I don't know. I'm 99.9% confident that will make a huge impact. If it doesn't finish the job, at least we've reduced it down to a manageable level. I think it will work, but I'm asking the City Council to please give this serious consideration. I have a little handout for you, and I'm very available for comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Next on the list is Andrew Simpson. One short, maybe it'll come around.
Hi, my name is Andrew Simpson. I live at 1.5 Greenleaf Street, which happens to be about 200 yards or so from the back entrance to the CVS lot, which is an eyesore and a safety hazard and an erosion problem. And the city keeps having to pave over the potholes. People have to keep walking out into the street to avoid the big puddles or the loose asphalt or the loose ice. baby carriages, cars, you know, it can splash you going by every day. It's just after every rainstorm and just about every, you know, ice melt and snow melt, there's an issue there. And it's been going on for quite a while. I attempted to reach out to the owners of the property because I think maybe the best solution is just ask them, would they agree to do some mitigation? And we need not get heavy-handed about this, and I haven't heard back. I want to thank my Ward 2 councillor for taking my letter and putting it on the agenda with the idea of maybe forwarding it to the Public Works Committee and to see if the city could work with the owners to develop a plan with some mitigation steps. I would like to see it beautified as well. It's pretty ugly, and there's a World War II memorial there that kind of gets lost in all the black asphalt. So, you know, a lot of buildings back up to alleyways or other buildings. This place backs up into a neighborhood, and it's unsightly, and we'd like it to be improved if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Tom Coulter-John.
Tom Coulter-John, 64 Federal Street. I strongly support 3 items this evening, but I'll be very brief. The first is the FY27 CPC recommendations. I think the committee put an awful lot of work into it. I think they came up with some very good recommendations, and I'm in favor of all of them. I think they're terrific. I especially think it's important to finally resolve the funding for the rehabilitation of the Bartlett Mall Frog Pond. This has been delayed for years, and I think it's about time to resolve it. Having a stagnant and toxic pond in the middle of a beautiful park can't be good for anybody. The second is the proposed amendment to the DOD. The small change in Ordinance 220 will ensure that something like 20 buildings are protected under the DOD as it was originally intended. This one's an easy one to vote for. The third is burying the electrical cable under State Street in front of 105 State Street. The neighbors on the corner, Lowell and Sharon, have worked extensively to restore their house on the corner. They don't deserve a pole right next to their driveway after all that work. They've done a marvelous job. So as long as there's safety involved and there are assurances to restore the street to what it should be, I think that would benefit everybody. So I hope you will vote for these items tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter-John. Next on the list is Connie Preston.
Thank you. Connie Preston, 18 Atwood Street. I implore you to vote no to bonding against $3.5 million of CPA funds for the Bartlett Mall Frog Pond project. Residents that are experts in the reclamation of bodies of water, just like the Frog Pond, have been coming forward for years to testify that this project is significantly over-engineered and can be done for far less money. Unfortunately, they were always summarily ignored by the administration. You have a water expert here that you entrust to our Water Sewer Commission that has a viable solution for a fraction of the cost of the project, but the administration will not even consider it. In an environment where we had to cut 14 positions across schools and DPS last year to balance the budget, and we have a significant gap to overcome this year, I'm confused why anyone would prioritize this project at this time. As for the argument that it's okay because it's CPA funds, I strongly disagree. The city has used between $1 and $5 million of CPA funds every year on very worthy projects such as the Memorial Stadium, Rail Trail, Waterfront Park, restoration of City Hall, etc. If we tie up CPC funds for the next 15 years, those funds will not be available for other worthy and necessary projects. Notably, an $800,000 assessment report for City Hall was the #1 priority on the administration's CIP last year. Clearly, City Hall has much needed and costly renovations on the short-term horizon. If you vote to tie up the CPC funds for the next 15 years, those funds will not be available for the work at City Hall. There's no question that City Hall desperately needs that work, and those funds will now have to fall to the general fund. I do want to address briefly the idea of setting up a fence. The administration did admit at a budget and finance meeting just last week that they have not tested the water in the pond for 3 years, so there's absolutely no basis to say that there's some sort of toxic event or a public health hazard at this time. I know that there is a passion project that has been put forward by a handful of very good people that have served the city well. However, in an environment where the city will likely need to cut even more positions to balance the
Your 2
budget,
minutes-
it's reckless to
your 2
consider
minutes is
these
up.
funds at this time.
If you have
Thank you.
anything to send us to us, you can in an email. Thank you. Next on the list is Andrea Eigerman.
Good evening. I am Andrea Gott Eigerman of 83 High Street. I'll try to be brief. You've heard from me before. I am the president of the Port Parks Alliance. It is a local nonprofit that was formed several years ago to educate folks on our 26 parks, to advocate for the parks, and fundraise for the parks. I have also been involved with the Bartlett Mall for about 15 years. I served on the Bartlett Mall Commission. And with all due respect to Mr. Spencer and Ms. Preston, last night I spent some time looking through the records I have of what work has been done through the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. We have tried many, many different approaches at the Bartlett Mall. We have tried chemicals like alum and glyphosate. We have tried aerators. We tried the fountain on its own, which failed, and we have tried new technology, which had a filter system. All of these technologies failed because there is such a high level of phosphorus in the 3.5 feet of loose sediments in the bottom of the Bartlett Mall. And believe me, staff has looked at every possible option to either phase or reduce aspects of the project, and it is not possible to have a successful project. So I urge you to support the Bartlett Mall Restoration Project once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Katie Herod. My apologies.
Nobody gets it right the second time.
Third time's a charm.
Maybe. My name is Katie Harriet, and I've lived a couple blocks from the Mall and the Frog Pond and the courthouse for 33 years. I'm always making sure that anyone who comes to visit me, family and friends from around the country, we wander downtown, the boardwalk, the restaurants, whale watches, but I always make sure that we get a couple walks in at the pond to show them what a magnificent treasure we have right in the center of the city. It's a place where I've made many friends recently, two-legged friends and four-legged friends, because I have a dog that I walk. And we are at the pond every day and sometimes twice a day. It's a treasure and a gem of a place that most communities can only dream of having. But we must be good stewards of our treasures, or we will lose them. The pond itself is a terrible mess, bordering on dangerous. We cannot afford to miss this opportunity, especially since there are funds that are dedicated especially for the cleanup of the pond. Please make sure that this happens and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harriet. And last on the list is Adelaide Carruthers.
Good evening. I'm Adelaide Carruthers. I live at 2 Wills Lane. My great-grandfather was a mayor of Newburyport, Elisha Dodge, and his son designed the Newburyport High School and the house I live in. Historic Newburyport is very important to me, and I urge funding for maintaining and taking care of Bartlett Mall. It's a unique, beautiful park for the community, and in the past 20 years, the restoration and thoughtful maintenance of our public spaces and architecture has made Newburyport a fabulous place, and we must keep that work going. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least is online. It is Nancy Caswell. And Ms. Caswell, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, Nancy Caswell, the report and review today. You've been supportive of a couple things. First, as the Chamber of Commerce president, I'd like to just share an update on some of our new permits that are in your consent agenda. We're submitting our fall festival, our car show, which we're familiar funds. In-street has been challenging over the years, speaking in fact on the reality that I blew my own kneecap on in-street on a rainy day, and it was not fun whatsoever. The in-street needs the replacements of some bricks and resurfacing, and we all know that there's several kids traveling on in-street between the playground and the school. So showing my support for that. And lastly, showing my support for the Parklet program, specifically around La Rosa. I think as a resident of our community, but as the chamber president, I think it's necessary for us to support the Parklet program, but specifically also La Rosa's patio. I know there's been some conversation and concern over public space use, but the reality is Market Square is certainly the star of downtown, and we've seen the lights off in Market Square for far too long and inconsistently since my time as Dragon Nest and before, and switching it over to Orange Leaf to then West Row and to then Vera and La Rosa. It's clear that if La Rosa can't make it work in that space and the council does not support a parklet space in front of their restaurant, that maybe a restaurant isn't the right use of the space, and I hate to see us forced to look at something like a Dunkin' Donuts or something like that in Market Square. So showing my support for that as a business representative.
Thank you, Ms. Caswell. That is it for public comment. I'm sorry, no. All right, next is late files.
There's one late file this evening. It's Order 832, the preservation restriction for 38 Forester Street.
Motion to waive the rules and receive the late file.
Second. Councilor Harmon.
So I know we're trying to move away from late files. I'm asking for your support. This is somewhat selfish for the operations of planning and development. If we don't receive this tonight, then it won't come in until the 11th. My meeting after that starts to run right into budget workshops. So it would be most advantageous for us to move this through with your support.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon.
Councilor Harmon, just for a point of order, are you requesting it to be waived the rule to accept it and refer it to
Planning and development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a second on that?
It was Councilor Cameron.
Okay.
You were the second on that, planning and development referral?
All right, discussion. All those in favor of accepting the late file, say aye. And waiving the rules? Aye. All right, with that being said, we do have a presentation this evening from our ACES counterparts. Given that last week was Earth Day, we have, I can't say your name, but Mr. Courier, and we have a representative from the high school who is going to speak on behalf of the ACES group. And I will share your presentation.
Al Yavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me see if I can get this.
I just want to send one moment for a little context, because ACES exists to help safeguard the well-being of current and future generations. And I'm proud that we've got a member of the future generation right here, Al Yavaro, who has done an outstanding job as co-leader for the whole project that you're going to hear about.
Okay, I'm Alexandria Yavaro, and yeah, I'm just going to get into the presentation. This first slide, I know some people have to turn around, but that first slide is a presentation from 2019 by 2 high school students, just kind of showcasing that this stuff is still going on. We're still beating the same bush, trying to reduce waste in our community. This is the Massachusetts mandate for the future, so it's 30% reduction by 2030 and 90% by 2050. 2030 is only like 4 years away now, so that's getting awfully close. So it's really important we get that started. So please join us in safeguarding the well-being of future and current generations by fostering green, healthy, resilient, strong, and sustainable everlasting communities through private and public collaborative programs and projects, which we'll get into a little later. So here are just some local health impacts of waste. One in particular was on the front page of the newspaper on Friday. It was on the right side, and it was just talking about the air quality in Newburyport, and Essex County was ranked the worst air quality in all of Massachusetts. So like that's including Boston, which just seems crazy, but Yep. And then going along pests and diseases, last August, the city posted an announcement about the rat problem in Newburyport. So just another local aspect of that. And then going into positive stuff, the best practices. So down on High Street, the Council of Aging, the Senior Center, they have a really good program, the Drop a Bag, Get a Bag program. I think we've collected over 10, maybe 11 now, tons of food waste and compost that now goes to Black Earth. So that's just one example of some great stuff happening. And yeah, we just need more buildings like that. Here's the whole Towards Zero Waste kind of program and campaign that we're working on. And we're working with 8 different municipalities, so they're all along the Merrimack River. That's kind of how we picked them. And then communities of interest, so like churches, schools, businesses, things like that. And here are the teams we're building. We've built a lot of them already. We have people for research, communication, and outreach. But we're always looking for more people to get on board and help us. And these are kind of the main components. So as I said before, the mandates, so to go along with that, the action plans. And then we have the community awareness activities, so like eco-conversations that happen most months at the Senior Center, presentations like this one, and then the workshops. We just had 3 really successful workshops, getting all those communities, it was like between 6 and 8 communities from that list together and give them strategies to reduce waste, and then models like the Senior Center. And this is written by Sean Reardon a couple months ago, just kind of emphasizing the importance of working together, cross borders, and then again, you guys adopted a city council resolution, kind of just emphasizing that the 2 mandates. And back to the workshops. So we had 3 really successful workshops. We brought, again, between 6 and 8 municipalities together to kind of just go over everything, to share current information. So we had a lot of great speakers. Molly Enbro presented too. She's not here, but about state funding and just resources that they can use to implement in their own communities. And then we're now working on collaborating with all of them, kind of coming together, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and helping to share models. And then looking forward, ACES was the whole catalyst for these workshops, so it's really important that we kind of stay still involved, so we're sharing the action plans and helping the other communities get everything they need. Making sure they know who's in charge, who should be getting all the information, how it's going to happen in their own town, and then, kind of just doing all that. And these are the collaborators we have to date. We have Newbury, all the 8 municipalities that we worked with, some churches, some organizations, nonprofit organizations, things like that. And then we have some more. And then we have some elected officials, Bruce Tarr and Don Shand. And thank you.
Full disclosure, I said she had 10 minutes, and I said she might not have time for questions. So I think she does have time for questions if anybody has some. So, Councillor Khan.
Yes, actually more of a comment. So thank you very much for going through that. A lot of good work happening, and I thought you did a great job quickly walking through it. I would offer with Public Works and Safety, this would be an awesome, I think, committee to bring in maybe an update, and I'll check with my committee members, but we could probably add on the agenda, and it'd be excellent to delve a little bit more so that we could align maybe some ordinances that we have, and knowing that there are practices that we believe some businesses should be doing. So definitely look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you so much. I tried to go fast.
You did great. Thank you. Any other questions, folks? All right, with that, Mayor's comment.
Thank you. I also want to mention that Al just committed to the University of Maryland this week to hopefully go into city planning maybe. Is that what we're thinking, city planning? So Very exciting. I was able to participate in 2 out of the 3 workshops, and Newburyport participated in all of them, and they were really well done, well put together. You know, it's funny, one of the byproducts of the 2024 Whittier vote was, you know, again, we were able to collaborate with all those communities involved with Whittier, and a lot of them obviously are up and down the Merrimack River. So we've been able to kind of grab that momentum and kind of work with it now on some of these waste initiatives. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going. So tonight, obviously, you have the community, I'm going to try not to read this. I sent this out earlier today, but I'm going to try to get through all of these. You have the Community Preservation Committee projects that you'll be voting on tonight. First, I want to thank the CPC committee. That's a really unique committee. I get to put a few people on there as mayor's appointees, but it's also a mix of a lot of different boards and commissions, which I think is really great. So they you know, every year they get to vet these projects and they send them off to City Council. I want to thank the Budget and Finance Committee for, again, vetting those, and now you get to vote on them tonight. 13 projects in all, 1 bond order, $1.23 million in projects this year. You know, it's funny, in year to year, it's always different, right? Last year, we had money left over, right? We didn't have enough projects come in to go towards it. This year, we had more than enough, and then they had to make some decisions. You know, talking about the $3.3 million bond, I think you heard plenty of public comment tonight in favor of it. You know, Bartlett Mall is that project that, again, is one of those ones in the city that always seems to get kicked down the road. And now we have private funding that we've been able to locate for this project, and now I think it's time. CPC, this is a perfect CPC project if you look at what they do year after year. And just something to note too, right? So even with this project, and again, it wouldn't kick in this year, but if you do vote for the bond, there'll still be over $1 million every year to go towards projects. And that's, in the next 4 years, we'll have 2 projects dropping off the list, right? It'll be the Cherry Hill soccer fields, and the stadium will drop off in 2030, so that's important to know as well. So I respectfully ask your support for these projects tonight. And again, thank you to all city staff and the CPC for all the time and effort they put into bringing those projects to you. So I'm going to give you I gave you some updates of projects last time. I'm going to give you just a few more that wasn't covered, right? So streets and sidewalks is one. Planning and DPS is still working to get our 2026 streets and sidewalk program together. I know we've been getting a lot of emails and calls. It is much later than usual, right, that we've been able to do this. I think having our program go so late in the year last year, finishing with State Street, have kind of set us a little bit behind. I did mention in my report here that we have already finalized a contract with Civil, and they actually spell it a very cool way, C-Y-V-L. You might have seen this vehicle popping around the town this weekend. They have a cool LiDAR thing on the car. So this is a really interesting technology that we're utilizing to, again, kind of update the work that Beta did back in like 2017, 18, and 19. We really, as Jordy is now working towards this next generation of the Streets and Sidewalks plan, we really felt like we needed more accurate data moving forward. I think a lot has happened with our streets in the last 7 to 8 years. And again, this contract with Civil is going to provide us with that information. Uses AI, much more strategic, cost-effective. They're actually working with Beverly right now, and they just could not say enough good things about them. And we had a great demonstration. So again, if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to share some more of that with you. What I didn't mention here is kind of what we're thinking for 2026. And we have nothing to share really in specifics tonight, but we're really looking at 2 options right now. One of them is working off of the old list, which we've taken down because we're going to put a new list out there together. But we're working off what was supposed to be happening this year. We're working off that list. That's one option. And there's another option where we recently did a survey, and we're still trying to get some information from that. So we don't have all the information yet, but we're working through 2 options right now. That option B, that is working off the old list, each ward is represented in there. So I'll say that. I hopefully will have more information with you soon. I'm not going to commit. I was going to commit on Friday, but I'm afraid to do that. So I'm going to say sometime within, hopefully by the end of this week, but early next week, we'll have some more concrete information about where we're heading for the 2026 Streets and Sidewalk year. Some of the other projects real quick. The water treatment facility project. Again, this is probably the most important project on our radar, as you know. It's also a project that's going to take a while to get to, right? So I want to kind of let you know where we are. Of course, we're now moving towards not a renovation, but a completely new water treatment facility in the current location. The current plan under consideration is a new treatment facility. Some of the technologies that would be featured here are dissolved air flotation and granular activated carbon filtration, which would address PFAS, taste and odor concerns, and future cyanobacteria blooms. Where we are right now is We're taking steps forward to execute a task order to begin a required 2-season pilot study. And that's what you have to do to get to a design of a new facility. So the study will evaluate treatment performance under both summer and early spring conditions. Right now, this is approximately a $60 million project, 5-year timeline, and this is eligible for state revolving fund financing. So that's just kind of where we are. Again, this pilot study is what we're starting for the water treatment facility project. Downtown lighting project, I don't know if you saw this weekend, we got some of the new lights in going up State Street. We have 18 lights that we're putting in, and also 47 light toppers along Water Street, so that will happen a little bit later in the season, but right now, the city electrician is focusing on the State Street, new installations. And again, we did State Street this weekend around Upper State Street over Pleasant because of the parklets going in this week, so that's why we were focusing there. And then just lastly, the water treatment facility flood protection. This is the flood walls project down at the wastewater treatment plant. This is 90% complete. We're getting close to being shovel ready on this project. This is one of Jordy Viding's projects. Again, we have no other funding besides that, so then once we get this shovel ready, we'll be out advocating for funds. We've had some conversations on the federal level as well, again, protecting this asset, which is right on the Merrimack River. And just to wrap up, our second city solicitor office hours are coming up on Friday. I think there's one slot available, at least there was the last time I checked. I was in the office, but I know some councilors already reserved their time, which is great. We're really enjoying working with AK so far, Anderson Krieger. And again, I think the first office hours were a big success, and we look forward to talking to him on Friday. And that's it.
Mayor, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Chalk, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. More of a comment than a question. So the whole, revamping of the streets and sidewalks and using LiDAR. I happened to be in San Francisco recently and saw a lot of unpersoned vehicles with little spinny, must be LiDAR things. And I happened to take an Uber in a Tesla and with a driver, and I didn't realize until halfway through that that driver was not driving. It was in self-drive mode, but all to say, this technology...
So you didn't notice there wasn't a driver?
Where I'm going to Newburyport is that technology, and this thing had on its screen detected every person within like a 200-yard radius somehow, in every car and everything that was happening. So I think it's a great use of the technology. My comment is, when the data collection is expected to take place in April and May with results delivered in early summer, I think it would be a great opportunity to have some sort of a community forum where something is presented in general. Maybe there's a little bit of public comment, just so everybody that's interested in their own street, their own sidewalk, in the city in general can just kind of throw their piece of advocacy out there as you then propose.
Yeah, the data is pretty neat. Again, utilizing the technology that's out there, it takes it in, I think 30-foot blocks, and so they're actually going to be doing the streets and the sidewalks all over the city, so it's pretty great.
Councillor Chalk.
The clarifying question about streets and sidewalks, because I have 8 different streets full of neighbors asking for an update, so I just want to make sure I answer this email correctly.
Sure.
2 options. One, every ward would have something done, and that's streets and sidewalks. Yeah, like some of them would be.
Not all of them, right? Because every time we do streets and sidewalks, it's a puzzle piece, right?
Okay.
So if you're using Chapter 90 funds, you have to do the sidewalks on those streets, right? And then there are some streets that we're just doing the streets. They might not need the sidewalks done. And then on all of those streets, there's different, asphalt, concrete, brick, a mixture of both. So that option B will have a mix of all those things. I think out of the 11 streets, I think there was probably 5. I'm getting a 5 from Sean Fenn over there. Unless that, he's saying hi. But 5 that have sidewalks. And again, the other option that we're looking at is just a much bigger project, which is why we had to get the survey done.
Okay.
And that's why I say, that's why we need other options, because, if you're using Chapter 90 money, you have to do the sidewalks. That limits what you can do there, right? And then we have our bonding money that we can use, and then we have our 50% meals tax, which has to go to sidewalks, right? So we're putting all those pieces together.
And I heard end of this week.
That was very ambitious of me, but by next week we should have some answers for you. It really, honestly, mostly right now we're just waiting on getting confirmation on some pricing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Smith.
So I guess when we have that updated plan, will there be some rationale kind of shared on what has sidewalks versus what doesn't? I know it's part of a puzzle, but how did you determine that?
Sure. Yep.
And then my second question on the LiDAR testing, will there be kind of like something shared in terms of like what the scope was and full project cost? Like I have no benchmark for how much this cost or where the funding came from. Is it from our streets and sidewalk plan?
Yeah, it's coming from the TPS budget, but yeah, we can certainly provide that.
Sounds good. And I'm certainly supportive of this. And just a clarification, at Cameron, Councilor Cameron, is Tesla uses cameras, not LiDARs.
I should have checked in with you first.
I work with vision systems in my day job, so I'm excited to see that we're using LiDAR.
It's pretty neat. I mean, it would be nice too at some point once we get our data to have, and like when you said, the public meeting, because it's amazing all the information you get off of this. Especially, again, when we're having those conversations around public ways, private ways, paper streets, like that all played into it as well. So yeah, we're excited.
Councilor Khan.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor, on the update on the water-related infrastructure projects, and the largest one being the new treatment facility. And I think one thing that would be helpful, we did have your memo in Public Works and Safety and ended up receiving filing because there will be an order for an ad hoc reboot of the water prioritization. But I do think for this particular project, it'd be great if the city's website or something like an FAQ on why the new plant, and you just mentioned, future cyanobacteria blooms would be avoided or something like that, but it'd be nice for kind of showing here's what the existing and just renovating versus the new treatment, because with the $68 million tag, I just don't want us to move ahead and get, similarly like the sticker shock, or how does the public follow along in terms of this is the reason? Because the ad hoc just started and, made the recommendation, but I think the administration would be great to kind of back that up with here's the direction and why. Great. It'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mayor.
All right, have a great meeting.
All right. Clerk Sullivan, the consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the minutes for the April 13th meeting, one communication 705, a letter from Andrew Simpson on the CVS lot Greenleaf Street, and that's to go to Public Works and Safety. Application 320, the chocolate tour for October 3rd from 12 to 4 p.m. to go to license and permits. Application 321, the annual classic car show on August 20th from 12 to 8 p.m. to go to license and permits. Application 322, the annual Fall Fest, October 10th and 11th from 10 until 4 p.m. to go to license and permits. Application 323, the longest table on State Street and Market Square, June 24th from 12 to 8 p.m. to go to license and permits. And application 324, the annual Indigenous Peoples Day, October 10th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to go to license and permits. One transfer 254 from the mayor, paid parking program, $221,350 to go to In Street and Patrick Tracy Square restoration, referred to Budget and Finance. A new appointment, 663, Sandy Lintasas of 8 Congressional Avenue, Plastow, New Hampshire, as an assistant harbor master, shellfish constable, and special police officer until 6/1/29 to go to Public Works and Safety. The following reappointments: appointment 664, Eileen Harsh-Grady, 10 Cushing Ave, Council on Aging until 5/31/29 to go to Community Services. Appointment 665, Mary Louise Gagnon, 126 Merrimack Street, to the Council on Aging until 5/31/29 to go to the Council on Aging. One order continued until May 11th, the gift order 826, the gift acceptance of a park bench, $4,950 from Gerald Ouellette. The following items are removed from the respective committees with the approval of the consent agenda. Budget and Finance, Order 824 and Transfer 253. Community Services, appointments 656, 657, and 661. Licenses and permits, applications 308, 309, 311, 312, 313, 314, 315, 316, 317, and 319, with a note that application 318 was withdrawn. Planning and Development, appointments 655 and 662, and ordinance 220. And that is the consent agenda.
Councilor Smith?
Motion to remove transfer 254 to the regular agenda.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
And also to remove appointment 663.
And application 318, please.
Application 318.
Yes, please.
Anything else? So that's transfer 254, appointment 663, and application 318.
Motion to approve
The mayor's comment.
and to collectively receive and file the mayor's update.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving right along.
The regular agenda, the first item is the application 318, the outdoor seating application for Oregano Pizzeria.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Discussion. All right. All those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Next is transfer 254.
Motion to table.
Second.
Discussion?
No discussion.
No discussion? All right. All those in favor of tabling, say, all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Appointment 663.
Motion to receive and, motion to approve on first reading.
Second.
Counselor Khan?
Yes, great. Thank you, Council President. So just checking what we refer to committees, and it's really Harbor Master is the only one that goes to a standing committee. Public Works and Safety is where we've sent it. For this candidate, Assistant Harbor Master, Shellfish Constable, Special Police Officer, I was thinking we could just approve on our first reading, but if anyone feels otherwise, I'm open to hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Khan. Further discussion? Counselor Hall?
Is this a reappointment?
No, it's a first.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. All those in favor of approving on first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Do I have to do a roll call? Yep, roll call. Sorry.
So a roll call for the first reading of appointment 663. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delai?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Truck?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes. Next item is orders. It's a continued order from April 13th. It's order 825, the gift acceptance for a park bench from Gregory Sullivan and Rowena Mons for $5,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Did we have two other appointments?
They were referred.
They were referred? Okay.
Is there a discussion on order 825? All right. All those in favor of approving say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Order 827 is a grant acceptance for the fire department, $16,696.48. It's a state grant for the FY26 firefighter safety equipment.
Motion to continue to our next meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of continuing to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Order 828 is a loan order for $2,226,000 for the Indian Hill Story Avenue Pump Station.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance and Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of referring to Be Enough and Committee of the Whole, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Order 829 is a loan order for $3,076,000 for water meter replacement program.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance and Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Order 830 is the poll request for Parker Street, and Order 831 is the poll request for Hillside Ave.
Motion to collectively refer Order 830 and 831 to Public Works and Safety.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Order 833 is the Ad Hoc Committee on Water Infrastructure.
Motion to refer to Public Works and Safety.
Second.
Discussion? Counselor Khan?
Yes, do we want to make that Committee of the Whole? Just curious. Yeah, okay, yes.
Second.
Okay, yeah. Friendly amendment to Committee of the Whole.
All right, Councillor Hall?
I thought I had seen that it was going to be referred to general government. Was there any discussion of that, or did I just imagine that?
It can go wherever the body decides to send it.
All right.
Okay. Further discussion. All right, all those in favor of sending the Ad hoc Committee on Water Infrastructure to PWS and Committee of the Whole, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Ordinances, second reading on ordinance 219. It's an amendment to section 13-179, handicap parking Washington Street.
Motion to refer on second reading, ordinance 219.
Approve. Approve on second reading?
What, I don't know what I said. Oh my God, yeah, motion to approve on second reading.
Motion to refer on second reading. That's good.
Sorry.
You don't want it back, I don't think.
Are there any discussion on that? So with it being an ordinance, do we need to do a roll call? Roll call.
On the second reading for ordinance 219, Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Callahan.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
Councillor Delay.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Track.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes. First ordinance is first reading of ordinance 222. It's an amendment to section 12-1.9, the use of a public way, all except sidewalks, quote, parklets.
Motion to refer ordinance 222 to Public Works and Safety.
Second.
Discussion? All.
Does anyone want to introduce that?
I guess it's me,
I think
right?
it was Councillor Callahan.
Thank you. This is part of the it's part of the current ordinance that says that people applying for parklets have to go before the licensing commission, primarily so they can carry alcohol across the sidewalk. And the state 2 years ago, I believe, changed the law, so you don't need to do that. It's just stuck in our ordinance, so for no reason, really.
Thank you, Councillor Callahan. Councillor Smith.
In my opinion, that matter is more appropriate for license and permits since it relates to the application process, so I'd recommend we friendly amendment to move it to license and permits.
I'm good with that. Like,
Okay. Councillor July? Yep. See your head going up and down? Okay. All right, so further discussion, going to license and permits.
It's unanimous for the body.
All right, all those in favor of sending 222 to license and permits, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Committee items.
All right, Budget and Finance, I have the least truthful agenda of the evening. It looks like 2 items, and it's a total scam. So it was baked in all of the CPC items. So with your grace, I'm going to actually do the Bartlett Mall first to release some folks who may be sitting here for that and to honor their time as best we can. So we had kind of gotten the habit in committee of calling this project number 14, even though it wasn't numbered. So I'm going to call it that throughout tonight and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Order 14. Okay, thank you. So first thing is I just want to start with just some basics about what we're actually doing here tonight. The Bartlett Mall has been in and out of a number of different matters throughout as recently as a couple weeks ago when we had a grant acceptance. This now is before us in a sense as a CPC project, but there's no actual money attached to it for this year because it wouldn't be anticipated to hit, if you will, until next year. So there actually needs to be a separate, proper, complete bond order, and that would come in the future. So we are not voting on a bond order tonight. Instead, we are reviewing sort of the case, if you will, and making a judgment that we will support that. And the reason is the grant that you heard about a couple weeks ago is tied to, the city making commitment to funding. So I just want to say that whatever the disposition is of this matter, if it's a yes, then there has to be a further process, which is a formal bond order. You've now seen one recently on the school bonds. It would look something like that along the way, right, give or take on the language. So I don't think this project needs a lot of introduction because of the amount of time that it's been in and out, so I will just focus in on kind of what the conversation was in committee and not some of more of the technical details and so forth. So we did have this in committee a couple weeks ago. Kim Turner was the proponent of the project, or the presenter, gave a similar presentation to the one that was done in a couple weeks prior. You heard a little bit of a summation of the project, but effectively it's a dewatering of the pond, drilling a freshwater well, installing the liner, restoring the fountain, installing the pump house, installing a dock, and that's kind of, very high level what the project is. It is a $5.3 million project in total. A complete breakdown of the sources of funds were presented in that presentation and is available for inspection, but to try and keep it relatively short, tonight we have the $3.5 million bond. A couple weeks ago we had the $700,000 grant that was accepted, and then we have the Mayor Gaydon Morrow Foundation contributing about another $700,000, and then you have sort of a mixture of these things coming together to add up to the $5.2 million in total for the project, which does include a 20% contingency. So that's kind of some of the finances there. As you might expect, the conversation in committee really centered around a couple things. Number one was trying to revisit the conversation of alternatives to some degree and inspect that a little bit. So councilors asked a variety of questions on, if not this, then what, and if that, and was this looked at? For example, I think aeration was discussed a little bit at length coming up. So that was a part of what the committee came down to discussing. I can't summarize that into a result of a conversation, but it was discussed, and that was something that was important to the committee, and it was committee of the whole, so other members as well. The second aspect was, of course, some of the financial implications of this project. So that centered around, if this project were to pass, and what would the bonding look like in terms of an annualized debt service, and then what does that mean for available CPC funds to allocate towards other projects, of course factoring in that there are already other bonds outstanding, some of which, as you heard, will at some point come off the rolls all over the place depending on which project you're talking about. So we did have Mike Doucette, who's the chair of the CPC, with us, and they had done some calculations, and they said that it sort of goes up to $770K would be the high, and then in 2031 it would reduce down to $630,000, meaning available funds once all the obligations were paid, and then down to what they said was a down towards a minimum 2041 of $325,000. Of course, this assumes no other debt is assumed in the intervening time. Some additional information was provided from the administration today. You can make of the numbers what you will there. Then we went on and talked about this project specifically, and some of the questions centered around useful life, how long will the liner last, what's the confidence interval, the efficacy of the project, will it work? We learned that the liner life is typically 30 to 40 years, but that's if it's exposed to sunlight, being underwater, and then under stone. In addition, the hope is to have a longer life than that along the way, and there was a good bit of confidence, I would say, that the solution will work, and that was something that was shared with us. Then we continued on, and we talked a little bit about the recreation aspect of this. This is primarily introduced by the grant that we accepted a couple weeks ago, so I won't rehash that, but this grant is sort of what is the impetus for installing the dock and potential future recreation activities. We talked about it lightly. There is not an immediate plan to do that, but that is something the grant looks for, so it does need to be honored. And then we did get into the testing along the way. We talked about the fountain repair. We asked about, or somebody asked about whether other funding sources could be considered. What could we use if we didn't use the CPC? The Mayor Curtis Fund was raised as a potential thing, and that was talked about just a little bit. And then finally, we did talk about the testing of the water, and if anything had been done in recent time. We didn't uncover anything on that. And so we concluded, again, back to the aeration project. There seemed to be some interest in that, but obviously we're here more as a committee to address the financial questions on the matter, and this has been building over many years, as you can see, so it's not for us to dive deep into. So, obviously, as you hear, it's a discussion, and it was 2-1 in committee. I was the dissenting vote, and that is your project. Thank you.
Councilors, a discussion. Councilor Smith.
And this is more of a general comment first, and then I have some specific questions. So earlier today, I sent an analysis of some of the CPC fund recommendations and approvals for the past 4 years. This is a very manual process, so 4 years was as far as I was willing to go, but in the future, we can certainly go farther back. So I have hard copies of this. If folks didn't read it, it is in size 2 font, so hopefully you took an eye test recently. And there's some extra copies for the public if needed. But what I wanted to call out here is looking back in the past 4 years, there has been not a very equitable distribution across the wards in terms of the contributions and recommendations. And the reason I bring this up is in terms of when we think about the implications for the 15-year bond, we're talking, we're making a decision in terms of future investments, and I would very much like to see the pendulum swing towards more investment in some of the wards that are underrepresented in the funding. So for folks that don't have the paper, and I'll read a few numbers here just so folks have a baseline, and I'm happy to share this offline as well. But looking at FY23 to FY26, Ward 1 received $110,000 or 1.29% of the funding. Ward 2 received $5.2 million and 60.87% of the funding. Ward 3, $891,000, 10% of the funding. Ward 4, $1 million and $45,000, 12% of the funding. Ward 5, $334,000, 3.87% of the funding. And Ward 6, $2,265, and that is 0.03% of the funding. Keep in mind, this is only 4 years back. I know there have been investments in the wards dating back that. For Cherry Hill, for example, for Ward 6, I know they've only gotten a signed panel in the past 4 years, but they have received investment as well, so that's not represented here. And the other thing is also Open Space Reserve Fund and Priority Housing Needs. I capture those as all, and that is roughly 11.5%. So I bring this up as I think about the CPC and the 15-year bond. I would welcome some discussion around alternative funding sources. I know we talked about the Curtis Fund. I'd also like to entertain talking about the Downtown Parking Fund and whether or not that's an appropriate funding source. The reason being is I would like to maintain some flexibility, especially for my ward as a ward councillor. In this CPC recommendation, we have the Hale Street shared use pathway, which has been descoped to a much smaller segment. This is an area that I know Ward 5 and 6 is very interested in seeing the whole way through, and the CPC is a very attractive funding source to at least fund a portion of that. And there are also many, the Little River nature trails and other I would say under maintenance opportunity, and I would love to see future investment there, especially as we look at safe connections from the west end to the rest of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Councilor Harmon.
Thank you. Through the chair, if we could invite the chair of CPC, I just have a couple of questions about that general process as it relates to the analysis that we received.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Jessette. Is the CPA committee, what do you call yourselves?
CPC.
CPC, that's the last C. Do you control the allocation of the projects that get applied for funding?
You mean control across wards?
Sure.
No, it's really, we are a grant review and grant recommending body that is passive.
Okay.
We don't seek out the projects. They're brought to us by various people, public and private. And that's what you see historically going back. So the place where the money gets allocated would be driven by where the park is or where the historic structure is.
What gets applied for?
And what is applied for, what money is applied for, and keeping in mind that we're talking about specific categories that are eligible.
Would you mind just summarizing that as well, just for the public?
The categories are open space and recreation. That's a combined category. Affordable housing, historic preservation. And if the first thing we have to look at with any application is do they meet that criteria, that eligibility criteria in those categories? If they do, then we proceed.
Thank you. So I think just to summarize my thoughts about this, I think the analysis is helpful. I think it's maybe a really good tool on a go-forward basis, but retroactively looking at the last 4 years, understanding the dynamics around the folks who apply are outside of the control, and the types of projects are pretty limited in terms of what's eligible for this. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Further questions?
Actually, a follow-up
Councilor
question
Joppa.
while you're standing right there. Sorry, if I could. Do we have a sense of, generally speaking, this year and in previous years, sort of the percentage of projects that are applied for by the city versus private entities, and perhaps the amount of funding that's applied for by the city versus private entities? Is that something? I know this is very off the
Off the top of my head, I couldn't give
you
you a number except to say that I believe that a majority of the applications we receive are city originated.
Okay.
Not necessarily one office, but from city or city adjacent bodies.
And so, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it stands to reason that if the majority of the applications are from the city, then the majority of the funds would also pretty much go to city proposed projects?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Z.
Can I just offer some perspective on that question? So that has actually changed. I also didn't come with a spreadsheet to explain the numbers, but over my 10 years, the first 5 or so actually were very heavily favored towards non-city entities, very heavy.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of discussion, increasing discussion for many years that, is that correct? There were questions about church and state. I mean, we went into all sorts of different things, and there was no policy outcome, like nothing was passed, an order, an ordinance, but that discussion, I think, in my opinion, sort of bred the next iteration, which is this shift towards mostly city applications. So again, I didn't have the numbers, but I wouldn't be shy to say it was like 90%, 10% non-city versus city, and then it's now flipped considerably to either, depending on how you look at it, it's a mixture or primarily city, especially with the advent of some of the larger bonding things. So just a historic perspective without the numbers, but it has changed, and the applications are the applications. So if
We
that
did a lot of
helps, helpful.
church steeples.
We did, yes.
Although the first bond that we supported with CPA money was the facade of this building. So,
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. You might want to stay up there, sir. You might want to stay up there. I have a feeling there are going to be more questions.
You can sit down for me.
Better you than me tonight.
Councilor Cameron?
Thank you. Yeah, you can sit down, Mike, thank you. Yeah, I just want to speak generally. I'm very much in favor of this project. It has been around for a long time, and as Andrea Eigerman said, there's been lots of things tried, and I think this is one of those opportunities where we need to find the funding. This is a little bit like the rail trail. Those of you who grew up in Newburyport or moved here around the 2000s, that was like this pie in the sky thing. Never going to happen. And Rail Trail 1, finally happened. Yes, there was a lot of federal state money involved in that, and it would never be used. And Rail Trail 2, at which time I was on the council, and when Jordy Vining presented us with the blueprints, he also remarked, whatever you do, do not hit print, because it was 200 pages and it was about as complicated as the Big Dig in Boston. And Ward 1, Ward 3 people, all of the easements and all of that's gone into that. And now it's like this thing that we take for granted. And I had a Facebook picture recently that popped up in memory of 2014. My wife and kids, very small at the time, walking through the bramble along the National Grid area where that berm is, getting close to the Coast Guard station, where you wouldn't have, that needed to be remediated, all very complicated. Took a long time to have happen, and I think again the Bartlett Mall or Mall, as I prefer Mall. I thought, okay, I'm getting the nod from Glee. Thank you. So the Mall. I think it's just so important. I know the council's been at it several times. I've peppered Director Turner and others with lots of questions as we've been fielding them. And, all these other alternatives have been made. This is a chance to get it done right. There's every question I've asked, how long will the liner last, which Councillor Zeid, the Ward 1 councillor, mentioned. I did not go to the committee hearing. Was answered. All of these questions have been answered, and I think it's a real jewel. It's just as important as our most important site here in Newburyport. To the ward breakdowns, I think that might be an important factor going forward. I hadn't really thought of that before Councillor Smith raised it. I think that should be incorporated as we get, as we're looking at proposals and then voting on them for the future, and making sure that there's balance. Not so much that it has to be in a ward, but that people can use it. I see the Bartlett Mall and things downtown are things that all 6 wards and precincts get to use, but I think it does help understand sort of what the breakdown is geographically. With that said, if there are other funding possibilities, Curtis Fund is something that we're going to be talking about 2 appointments later on. If that's I'm going to vote for this tonight. If that's a possibility that can cut into that to that bond, that would be certainly useful. I had not considered the downtown improvement parking fund. I don't know if downtown if Bartlett Mall is in downtown. It's pretty darn close. Just got to cross the street. I'd be open to that, but I would like to see us move forward on this tonight. And again, the bonding wouldn't go out until next year. Again, we've heard a lot. If we could use CPC money for water treatment projects, people have talked about purchasing open space, and I've asked about that, and it doesn't sound like there's anything available for Newburyport CPA taxpayers to pay to purchase land in West Newbury. Seems a bit of a stretch. Could be done. Maybe it couldn't be done. I don't know, but it doesn't sound like there's any land for sale there right now. And I think that's a small part of our overall water problems, and some of the other things the mayor talked about and we've been talking about, and we'll be looking at the water ad hoc again. I think that's where we solve that. That's not going to get solved by CPC. So again, I'm supportive of this particular project.
I saw Councillor Zeid's hand. Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? Councillor Khan, and then Councillor Zeid.
Oh, you.
No, I was going to, who hasn't spoken?
Okay.
So.
Yes, so I think there's 2 things during the conversation on this. One is what else can we fund, which I think Councillor Cameron touched on a little bit. And then the other one is this the right solution, which we heard a little bit about in public comment. So just to really give some of my context in terms of what I've been hearing about the Bartlett Mall project is a lot of it on the website. We have a page dedicated to this project. And that's a great way, and I think my colleagues must have familiarized themselves with that page, but if one goes through every single document, it gives a little bit of the context of the history and the time that has been spent on this specific issue. And every report, and yes, there's several pages, I think, of information, talks about the sediment, talks about the different alternatives that could be done, which ultimately led to the decision we're talking about. So from a perspective of, is this the right solution, I can appreciate, we should always be looking for the right solution, especially if we haven't yet done anything about it. So I definitely appreciate the questioning and the thought process on, that is a lot of money. $5.2 million is a pretty hefty price tag. So definitely appreciate those who have expertise lending their voice. That's what this body is for, is to hear the public on that. But I do want to point out, one of the things in terms of chemical treatment, it came up as well when we talked about our own issues with our drinking water, using alum and other kind of chemicals, I guess, to treat cyanobacteria and prevent algal blooms. We learned a lot about it, and definitely that also has its cost to it. And what's the efficacy? So one thing I really do appreciate is some of the reports that I think it's the GEI report that talked about the different alternatives, of which chemical treatment and aeration was one of the alternatives they talked about. And even in the CPC report, where the 3 options That is not an option that's not ignored. It is talked about, but it's not a certainty because, again, the big issue we're dealing with is the high level of metals, toxins, and the cyanobacteria. And that, as we know, and we're talking about across the board in this city, we know is not an easy thing to solve. So I really do appreciate the pathway on the solution. So for me, while I know it's been talked about, that one, I think we're here. This is the project. The second one is what else could we fund with the money? And I appreciate the conversation on that in terms of what have we historically done. For me, my focus was more on bonding. What have we traditionally bonded for? And what are things we would not be able to bond for because of, and I think in public comment, we're kind of tying up the funds. I think we said around $350,000 a year from the CPC funds would go towards paying off this bond. If I look at what we did historically, City Hall was the first one in 2005 at a 13-year bond. And I'm looking at the projects we did. We did a lot of fields, soccer fields, the high school memorial stadium, which we all are very familiar for, and it's used quite well. This project would be the highest that we're bonding for, but I also look to see across the board in terms of what are we even funding today? What were the projects that came on the list that we've done for the community? And again, using $350,000 to bond something like the Mall, and whether we talk about the historical kind of relevance of it, but not only that, an opportunity with it, which is really what's resonating with me, is that for those of us who were here and saw Yankee Homecoming actually use and have actually people in that water, I mean, granted they were on canoes or logs or something and doing some kind of activity, we have not seen that in a very long time. And I feel like the kind of rejuvenation of that space, and I think we had public comment showed us pictures of what it was like there. So I think this is an opportunity that is not just for a certain ward, but it's for the whole community. And in terms of getting something done, it's one of those things too, if we don't start letting this happen, it's gonna still sit, and we're still gonna be then faced with the same issues. We might have short-term solutions, but we recognize and we already know the life of them is not long enough. So this, to me, will fully 100% support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. Is there anyone else who has not spoken? So Councilor Hall.
Thank you. So I've been approaching this project with an open mind and taking in a whole lot of information. I've read every email that's come in, everything I could find online, proactively reaching out to folks to find out what they think. And at this point, I am inclined to support the project. But we got some 11th hour information from Mr. Spencer saying that he's 99.9% certain of this solution that's only $100,000. So I would love to hear some type of response to that before we move forward. Is that possible through the council president?
Is there someone that would be able to speak to that? That's an 11th hour comment. Is that an aeration piece that, Director Turner?
So I can say, I mean, I can't say specifically about this particular equipment, but I can say that we have asked our engineering crew as well as our limnologist who we've been working with on the artichoke reservoirs. She in particular was very concerned about just instituting aeration here because that can proliferate cyanobacteria blooms without sort of the proper also chemical treatment. And so what that would mean would be in-lake treatments along with aeration. And again, it's a very different system than the artichokes, which are much larger, deeper. You have, you can sort of, as we're doing right now, put the alum treatments in sections, which allows wildlife respite to go to different parts of the pond. My understanding is that when the alum treatment was done at Bartlett Mall several years ago, there was fish kill because it is a toxin to wildlife, so the fish and the frogs were detrimentally impacted. And this would be something, from my understanding, again, talking to the limnologists and the engineers, you'd have to do over and over again and reapply on an annual basis. So I don't want to speak specifically about this. I haven't had a chance to look at it. But my understanding is that aeration in itself proliferates blooms. You would need alum, which can cause other detrimental impacts to wildlife.
Thank you.
All right, no other others who have not spoken. I will go to Councillor Zeid.
Thank you, Madam President. So I just wanted to, I was trying to think about how to best sort of organize my thoughts after a long process. And, for me, it came down to what are the questions I'm asking myself and what answers am I giving to myself based on the sort of body of work around this and all the committee meetings that I've heard. So first is, with due respect and without any arraignment of any motives, I want to counter some of my colleagues as a respectful debate, particularly Councillors Cameron and Khan, about competing projects. That's been a huge area of discussion in the public realm and now here on the floor as well. And what really is interesting to me is in committee we say, well, what else are you thinking about? And the answer is, well, not much. We can't think of much else in the way of big projects. And you need only go back to the public record to find that there's plenty of competing projects. In the CIP from last year, there are 3 explicit projects. You don't have to imagine them. We're standing in one of them right now, which we're waiting for an $800,000 study potentially to tell us that the building's not in great shape. We already know that. So this one right here is a historic category type project. I'm not saying every penny that's spent on this building can qualify for CPA funds, but clearly it's a historic building. So that's number one. Number two is, it's been interesting about the open space acquisition, which is probably the one that's most on point for the water versus Bartlett-Mao argument that's been happening in the public realm. CIP 68 is Turkey Hill open space acquisition, $1.9 million. It's an open parcel. You can go read about it in CIP 68. And it actually was sort of lifted in the rankings, and it's in one fiscal year away. So we're not going to fund $1.9 million. The open space fund is shy of $1 million in cash right now. You would probably bond something. And then probably the biggest one is the Hale Street connector, which I hear is also a very important thing. It's not my ward. I suppose I could say, well, it's not my problem, it's not my ward, but it's clearly an important connector for the city. And so you do have to assign relative importance to things. That's unfortunately the hardest part of this job, is saying this is more important than that, and recognizing when you make one decision, you are making domino decisions on other things. So there is no capital spending plan, as you know. We have a plan of projects we sort of like or are thinking about, but those projects will have to shrink, as you heard from the Ward 5 councillor, because it's math, and that's how math works. Or we're simply going to absorb the entire CPA over the next 10 years into bonds, because we got a sweet tooth for big projects, and then we won't have budget will be nice and happy. There won't be a lot of committee work, because it'll be just paying 10 or 20 bonds for the next million years. So I want to directly refute the point that this money is not competing with other projects. It's not competing with them tonight, but you are absolutely baking a cake here, and you should know what you're doing. The second one that really upset me was the discussion of the health risk. So it's been amazing to kind of listen to the parallels being drawn to the public water supply. So in the public water supply, I haven't heard anybody saying, I should start with this. I've heard plenty of people saying they have the same problem, which is so interesting to me, but no one's saying we're putting a fence around the reservoir, and no one's telling me to stop drinking that. At the same time, apparently the same problem in the Bartlett-Mao requires a much more immediate response in a much more acute fashion, and the solution that we just pitched and sort of accepted last couple weeks ago on an alum treatment for what I have to put in my body and what residents do is acceptable, but here wouldn't be acceptable, and it's been tried and it can't work, and so on and so forth. Similarly, there's no credible documentation about the fencing threat. That is a sort of a figment that was invented. There's no report that says that. There's nothing that says that. And one's common sense would draw the line that says, in committee a couple weeks ago said, well, Mal's had these problems for 200 years. It was drawn back to when the courthouse was built and the fresh water was cut off. And so you're listening to things that are incongruous, but you're being asked to accept them. And to me, that is a very difficult pill to swallow. The last thing I ask myself is comparing this iteration financially with the one that just happened a couple years ago. So you can go look it up. The bond order came in. It was a CPA bond order, $2.6 million. There's some grants, whatever. It goes out to bid. It comes back high. To the administration's credit, they say, no, it's too much. We can't do it. Fast forward just a couple years, the project comes in even more than the more, and the answer is, we're going to do it this time. I don't understand. In a tougher budget year, that's what everybody, I know that's like the buzzword, it's a tough budget year. AI will start saying it soon because it hears it so much in our lexicon. What has changed? What justifies something that couldn't be justified just 2 short years ago when arguably financial conditions have gotten worse, not better? So it's mystifying to me. I'm really appealing to my colleagues to reconsider, recalibrate their analysis on this. And it's not a jubilant ask. It's not fun to stand up and maybe 10 to 1 tonight, such is life, but recalibrate. Think about what you're really doing. Think about when the project starts, if it does, and a resident drives by and they see all these other things happening in their city and they ask, why is that the thing that we're doing? That's the question they're going to ask themselves, and you will have to be able to answer that. And you've heard my analysis, and I come, again, not with glee, but with sobering reality that the answer is no. I yield. Thank you.
Sir. Further discussion. Councillor Nikitic.
So I paid a great deal of attention to this project when it was being discussed in 2023, and my conclusion was the project itself was good. It was a fine way to solve the problem, but once the bids came in too high, that it was a nice to have. And I had hoped that we could do it in a phased way or do something, maybe not other things, and get by. So starting in January, I picked up on that and I started asking the questions, can we phase it? Can we just do aeration? That seemed to be the most logical thing. Can we do other things? And I have spent 4 years in the past, I would say 3 weeks, more intensely, reading, talking to people, and I don't think we can phase it. I don't think that would work. Just doing alum treatments, even if they did work, and the frog pond is a much smaller body of water, much more shallow, and it's stagnant. So it's really not like the reservoirs. And it has been tried in the frog pond, and it didn't work. So I would like to see a real solution. We have spent money that went nowhere in trying to solve this. And so we shouldn't spend any more money until we're going to do something that actually fixes the problem. I was surprised to hear today that there is this $100,000 solution. I actually did, I called Mr. Spencer more than a week ago, and we talked. He was in a car going to New York, so it wasn't, but we exchanged emails with him, and it was clear that I was asking, and I sent him different articles like, is there another solution? I didn't realize when it's been brought up that there's some magic solution that the city hasn't paid any attention to. I didn't realize it was Mr. Spencer's solution, but I do tonight. And I think it's unfair if councillors have been asking about these solutions and we didn't get the answer until tonight. It makes me think that it's not really a solution. So I know that there are people who don't think the health risk is real. I'm not one of those people. The Bartlett Mal may have been, and the Frog Pond may have been around, since ancient times. But we have climate change, we have human impact on the park and the body of water, and the increase in algal blooms is it's a global phenomenon, and it is caused by climate change. So things are getting worse much more rapidly, and I don't think people are walking their dogs, I hope they're not, around the reservoir. But the Bartlett Mal is a place for people to walk, to take their dogs, to walk around with their children. It is a communal place. It's not a reservoir. And taking the risk that there really is no health problem with cyanotoxins being in the air doesn't seem prudent to me. We need to fix the problem anyway. And I know this project is expensive, but we may keep doing this. Funding, you know, we spent $216,000 on consultants to get to where we are now. Years of staff time. Going to permitting authorities, getting the permits. And so we could say, well, we're still not sure, so let's stop. And maybe we restart the process 5 years from now. And it will all be more expensive, and we might have say, damn, we should have done it. So I was a reluctant up until I started looking into it this year, but I'm voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Councillor Trock, and then I'll come over to Councillor Smith. Councillor Trock. I'm sorry, you have spoken.
I asked some questions.
Okay. So Councillor Trock and then Councillor Smith, sorry.
Thanks. I am going to support this project tonight. It is part of our shared heritage, and we absolutely must accept the responsibility to pass that on to future generations, as it was passed to us. And we need to have a real conversation about how we are investing in everybody. I have heard a few voices mention that the Bartlett Mall is for everyone. And yes, while that is true, not everyone is in walking distance to the Bartlett Mall. Some of us can't bike there either, and we might not have a shared use path to get us safely there in the future either, if we are not willing to up our investments in these other wards. I am voting for this now, but I expect that in the future, other neighborhoods get the same consideration for shared spaces and for investment, because we really need to change that. And having heard that the city is bringing most of the projects up for these, then I think as a city, we need to decide together how we are going to more fairly allocate these funds so that we are all invested in. I will be much more unlikely in the future to send 60 to 86% of the funds downtown, because that is not fair to the rest of us.
Thank you, Councillor Trock. Councillor Smith.
I'm not sure who to direct this question of, but I would like to understand whether or not we can or cannot use the downtown parking fund. Because to Councillor Trock's point, I really am looking to find flexibility in future funds. So because we have multiple bonds currently out there for the Fuller Field, Cherry Hill, et cetera, our biggest years that we're going to be squeezed are going to be in 2028, 2029, 2030, and 2031. And the available funds will range from $680,000 to like $670,000. So, and I can say that the very small segment of the Hale Street Shared Use Pathway is around $400,000. It's not to say we would just use this fund for this. There's, of course, going to be diversity of opportunities there, but that would not be equitable to use all of this fund for Hale Street. It also wouldn't go very far in terms of having a more equitable distribution in the future for $680,000 roughly for 4 years straight. So I would like to understand if we can use the downtown parking fund. From a separate transfer that is tabled, it seems like there's $1 million and change in that fund. I know it's not an either or, but one is a bond, one isn't. So I think we should really have a debate around which funding sources we entertain for this particular project. And I don't know how we define downtown for the downtown parking. Where does it end or not? So I'm, one, curious if this is eligible, and then two, what would be amicable from the city in terms of how much we would get from there versus here.
Councillor Zaid.
I can try and answer the question if
Please.
you wish. So I just want to answer it in two ways, and I try and just stay on the facts here. Number one is obviously a change in funding source needs to be essentially effectively endorsed by the administration because it's a new appropriation. So that's part one. Part two is the paid parking fund was established in 2018, and I'm just going to read verbatim what the order said. This fund, upon recommendation of the mayor and approval of the city council, may be used for acquisition, installation, maintenance, and operation of parking meters and other parking payment enforcement technology, comma, the regulation of parking, comma, salaries of parking management personnel, comma, improvements to the public realm, comma, and transportation improvements anywhere in the city, and be it further that, and then the rest is not relevant to the utilization. So I can try and interpret that for you, but I think it's best if I just stop. That's what it says.
Thank you,
So,
Councilor
and
Zaid.
I can share that order with anybody.
Councilor
if you
Smith?
wish.
I guess a follow-up question. How do we define public realm, I guess? Is this public realm in terms of?
Well, it depends on the what's tied to it, but the answer is 6 votes of the city council is what defines it. I know it's not the explicit answer you want, but that's the reality.
Okay. Further conversation, discussion, questions?
I guess the question is have we considered that fund at all? And would they be amicable to that, leveraging a portion of that fund?
Chief of Staff?
So the downtown parking fund has not been considered or discussed. I would have to speak with the finance director.
Sorry, I wanted to chime in on that one. I think to me it doesn't feel like it's downtown, right? I think it's downtown adjacent. So for me, if I'm looking at the current CPC, I think you could make a strong argument for the in-street and the Patrick Tracy Square brickwork to fall under the parking, which would alleviate some. But I mean, off the top of my head, I don't think we know. Again, it doesn't seem like the use of those funds for that. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't have that from legal or anything like that. Okay. But if I'm looking at other ways to be flexible, that's something that jumped out, that you certainly could do that. The parking funds for, sorry, I had a mint, I just jumped out of my office. I think you certainly could make an argument that the brickwork on In Street being downtown could be used with parking funds, especially if you think about like Green Street Lot and people walking back and forth from there. So.
All right. Councilor Cameron?
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm wondering if we vote to approve this tonight, again, similar to, in a way, the debt exclusion on the rec center, not to bring up yet another painful community topic, but where...
Or a joyous topic.
Where voters, voted on the debt exclusion part, but if the Curtis Fund kicks in or there's other funds, raised, that kind of goes to cut that. Cost. I mean, my ears say public realm, unless it, I'll reread it. I mean, I did hear what Councillor Zaid said. Public realm is public realm. It didn't have a very strong geographical connection. And again, the Curtis Fund, I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars from either source, but if it's 100 here, 100 there, and it can kind of get over that hump where those years are impactful to the CPC, revenue flow, then
Sure.
that might be something that could be considered, and I think the council would probably be open to that. Again, continuing to diversify the funding, which we've already done because we have, the moral foundation, as well as that state money with a long acronym that I can't remember. But anyway, I think I'd be open to entertaining that. Again, I think moving this along tonight, though, would be a way to keep that conversation open.
Councilor Smith?
I guess just to follow up, so I want to be supportive of this. What I'm trying to get at is more flexibility in the CPC funding for the underrepresented wards in the previous 4 years. So that is what I'm trying to work towards a solution. So if we can come up with other options, I can be supportive of this, but as it stands right now, like $680,000 to go across 6 different wards doesn't seem like very much for those 4 years.
Councilor Nicotic, then Councilor Zaid.
So I'm glad that you...
You might want to stay.
I'm glad that a ward analysis was done. I have actually been working going back to 2005 for an analysis of CPC grants, and it is a very manual process. But I wouldn't have even thought to do it by ward. I was going to do it by category and by public versus private. And I'll still do that. But what you can spend CPC money on is controlled by the state, not by the city. So the city council couldn't change eligibility. And it just, it's a fact that a lot of projects have been in areas where there are parks, athletic fields, and historic buildings. That's just because and the Affordable Housing Trust spends their money a different way, so it's true that that's more like an all bucket of money, and open space as well. But if you started trying to do rules about dividing it up equally by wards, I don't think it would work. I think it's something that could be looked at if there are projects in wards which have not benefited as much from CPC funds. If there are eligible projects, that's fair enough to look at them. But I would go back the full time, go back to 2005 and look at it.
Okay, Councillor Zede.
So now I am going to editorialize. I fought tooth and nail in 2018 for that anywhere in the city clause because of the same perceived concerns that the wards 4 and 6 councillor have raised, that money tends to just get concentrated into certain places. I've been consistent on that. It's also one of the reasons that the roadway plan represented different wards to see that everybody got some improvement across the city when it was needed. And I want to say, most importantly, that the other end of this process is already happening. We haven't gotten to the other project in here. I will refrain from debating on it, but the Hale Street project has already been reduced. It's already reduced. It's a quarter mile now, 0.25 miles. I'm going to present that to you shortly in a committee report. So this is not abstraction. The problem with it is if you say yes now and you say I might say no later, you don't have the chance later because it's already done. So you can't, unfortunately, kind of do the analysis later and say, I'll let this one go and I'll pick up on the next one. So I just wanted people to understand that anywhere in the city was a hard-fought battle, and councillors who were here may remember that. I certainly do. But it was purposeful and intentful, and to see that everybody gets benefit from these sort of citywide programs that exist.
Thank you for the reminder, Councillor Zede. Further discussion? All right. Seeing no hands, the motion on the floor is the approval of item 14. Councillor Smith?
I guess what I'm still not clear on is of whether or not we can entertain another source, or if we can add a condition or an amendment around looking into the downtown parking or the Curtis Fund to be able to offset. But for me, it's very important that we set ourselves up for success for the next 4 years, specifically in the years where we have the overlapping bond obligations. And I'm concerned that how much is going to CPC. I fully support this project. Obviously, something needs to be done, but I want to make sure we're not kind of corner ourselves in. It is a 15-year bond, and 4 years in particular can be very tough.
Chief of Staff, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I think as the mayor just said, we will look into other sources and what's possible. Without finance director here tonight, I don't want to say certain things are completely what we can do, but 100% we'll look into whether downtown parking fund. I know that Curtis Fund has been a question as well, if there may be some funds available and where we could reduce. So yes, we will look into that and get back to you with what may be possible around that.
So I guess the question, I don't know, could we structure the motion around some condition here, or should we motion to continue until we have that information? I'm looking for advice in here, or the best approach, or what approaches exist, I suppose, in terms of enabling that flexibility.
Councillor Nikitic?
My understanding is from the Budget and Finance Chair is we tonight are approving the intent to bond this, but the bond order will be a separate thing, and maybe by then we will have more information if there are other funding sources. But I have to say, I think I've asked 3 times if Curtis Fund money could be used for this, and I've been told 3 times by the finance director that the answer is no. So I hope it suddenly becomes a yes, but I just am reporting what has happened 3 times.
Okay.
Oh, can I just make one comment about that?
Councillor Callahan?
Please, thank you. The Curtis Fund people, because I'm on that, they pretty much said outright, you know, if it's as long as it meets the general reason that they even formed it, that they're going to stay out of the way. They're not going to dictate what we can and cannot nominate to be spent on from that fund,
Okay.
as long as it meets the general qualifications.
All right, Councillor Harmon, you have not spoken yet, then I'll come back to Councillor Nikitic.
I did a long time ago. Just because I want to make sure that information, I think Councillor Nikitic was about to jump on this too. Because this has been discussed for quite some time in different meetings, I recall in the grant acceptance we did a couple of months ago around this project, when some of these same concerns around the bond were being flagged initially, and when maybe would have been a great time for a dialogue about alternative funding sources, but we were digging into those details. And one of the questions that came up was around the ability for us to use Curtis funds. And I believe because it is a bond through CPC, there are limitations on what Director Sorrow felt like she could commit to in that conversation. Now, that answer may change upon further investigation, but I just want to say, while the Curtis Fund allows us to use it for any number of different purposes for the good of the community, our ability to use it to pay down the bond in the same way that we are for the rec center was a no-go.
Thank you, Councillor Harmon. Councillor Nikitic?
Councillor Harmon explained what I was going to try to very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harmon. Further discussion? All right, the motion on the floor is the approval of line item 14. This is a roll call vote.
Motion to approve project 14, Councillor Zede.
No.
Councillor Callahan.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
Councillor Delai.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Nikitic.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Track.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Okay, councilors, we're going to continue back to project number 1. I understand there's a recusal, so I'll yield for that.
Everybody in the public, I'm a butter, so I can't.
Okay, so motion is to approve project number 1, Belleville Meeting House Ceiling Repair, $170,000 request, $91,211 appropriation.
Second.
Okay, this was represented by Jim Samuelson from the church, who is the treasurer of the organization. The church has been there for a long time, and this project is being applied for under the historic category. What basically they have found is that their ceiling in the building is extremely brittle. They've had it inspected by an expert, and the plaster is failing, and they were very appreciative to be before the committee at the moment to apply for the grant. They have been working on this for a couple of years. They have progressed to the point where they do actually have a bid from a local firm of $380,000, which is inclusive of permitting fees, electrical, and that sort of thing. So the total project is not represented by this $91,000. The total project's $425K. And so, as you might imagine, this is part of the funding, not all of the funding. So they did go on to explain the difference between what made the 170 go down to 91,211. In this example, it is not a constraint on the CPC side in terms of that they were doing it on the grounds of the amount of money being asked for, but rather that a portion of the project is not, basically the blue board and plaster is considered cosmetic and therefore not eligible for CPA funds, so the CPC backed that out, and that's how they sort of came to the $91,000 figure. The church does have $141,000 sort of stored and ready for this project, so if you add that together, let's just call it $230. It's still shy of the $380. So they are working on additional grants in order to close that gap, but they are working on it. As a historic preservation project, there is already a preservation restriction in place, so that was not a major issue on this project, and they are going to continue to work on it. Since it came germane in conversation, what if a project cannot execute ultimately, like what if they can't raise those additional funds? They will be asked regularly by the city, typically once a year, to provide updates on the projects. And what has happened historically is after a couple of years, for example, not a set timeline, but if there seems to be less and less chance, the project can be rescinded. But they are asked to continue to provide those updates as they complete it. And usually if they're working in good faith, the process continues until they're able to cobble together the remaining funding. It was 3-0 in committee.
Thank you, Councillor Z. Further discussion? Do we need to do a roll call on all these? All right, roll call.
On project 1, Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Callahan?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Counselor Delai?
Yes.
Counselor Hall?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon is recused. Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Nikotich?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Chuck?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
10 yes, 1 recused, motion passes.
All right. With some grace, I'm going to combine some of the projects that frankly were not overly controversial in committee and were approved 3-0, but not all of them, just enough that I can fit them in my brain and on my pages of notes here. So motion to approve projects 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Thank you. So project number 2 is the Old South Church, the restoration of the windows, not replacement, restoration. Again, another old building, has been around since 1742, comes in under the historic category of the CPA, and they are looking to restore 1829 windows, the year 1829 windows. These are very large windows. You probably see them if you take walks in the South End. They're actually a total of 8 windows. They've done 3 of them so far. 1 they are working to acquire grants for, and this project in particular, which I should have said the amount, I apologize, is $58K, even ask and recommended, so appropriated. And they hope they would use the $58K towards those 4 windows, and hopefully they'll get that last 5th one done to complete the entire set. These are being restored. They're using Window Woman, which is known in the area for being able to do and handle these kind of restoration. Again, they now have experience because they have done 3 of them. This is the project. This is the total project. There is, again, a preservation restriction, so that did not come into play in our conversation, and as I mentioned, it was 3-0. So that's project 2. Project 3 is a relatively small ask. This is the gravestone restoration at Belleville Cemetery, $2,000, and that was the request and also the recommendation. This cemetery was established in the 1700s. As you can imagine, some of the gravestones are quite old, and Glee Woodworth, who appeared along with Don Little, who was a trustee, was explaining to us some of the work that they've been undertaking. We were told that since the start of this sort of effort, 2,000 graves have been restored and cleaned up and done really nicely, which was nice to hear. And we did inquire how many gravestones might be able to be affected by $2,000, and it's a tough answer with the varying condition, but 50 to 100 across 60 hours of effort would be expended. And again, we did actually ask about a preservation restriction. It's not real property in the sense it's not a structure, so it's not really relevant per se. So anyways, there's 3-0 in committee. Project 4, this is fire protection for the meeting house and parish hall at the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist. It was $117,000, and that was both asked and recommended. This was represented by Rebecca Bryant, the pastor, and Ed Buttleman, who is on the board. And this is really all about fire protection. They do have an existing sprinkler, essentially, system in the building. It is not, it's sort of run its life course and is not considered to be sufficient. Obviously, it's an old structure, old wood, subject to risk around fire. They've already been working with the city's water department, who they offered praise for in terms of being helpful and trying to solve some of the engineering challenges around getting this thing in. But they're basically really right there. So there's $117,000 here being offered by the city in this, subject to your approval, and $40,000 that the organization itself will commit. And with the success of those 2 things, they will have fire detection in the parish hall, and then upgraded in the meeting house, and it will be give a great deal of sort of peace of mind and comfort, not just to them, and they do use the building for a number of community purposes, but also to their neighbors who are obviously in close proximity, given how downtown is laid out. This one did have a PR question, a preservation restriction question on it, because there is a preservation restriction, but we got into discussion about the parish hall and is that covered by the preservation. So the committee amended or addended this motion to approve with a condition that a preservation amendment is secured. I will say that today I received note that this actually may need to be a new preservation restriction. I don't necessarily personally think it's worth getting in the weeds of whether it's an amendment or new, but if we could approve it with the condition that a preservation restriction be secured, I think that would cover both new and amended, and they can work out the details. So those are 2, 3, and 4, and all 3 of them, 4 with that amendment-ish, was 3-0. Thank you.
Councillor Z. Further discussion. Councillor Nicotic.
So on the PR, whether it's an amendment or a new PR, at Budget and Finance, I did ask Director Port if the PR amendment needs to go through the same process as a PR, and he said yes. So my concern is always that there's a PR in place before we're providing money. And we used to, I thought, have actually a rule about this because of a situation in 2019. And I don't suspect this to happen again, but you never know. And we were actually sued by this church over a dispute over the use of the CPA funds. And it involved the Dover Amendment. I'm not going to...
Is it this one or the Congo?
Central Congregation. But the problem we set ourselves up with is that we actually provided the funds before the PR had even been started. And so we have to get away from that, and we have to be more disciplined about PRs. And what we did with the firehouse is the condition was that they had to have a PR by the end of this year. That was so... I'm going to suggest the same thing for the Unitarian Church. That it's now like almost May. Maybe that's a little tighter, but I think that at least they could have a commitment from the Massachusetts Historical Commission by then. And it's kind of, they're a no-brainer. They do have a PR. And that building is very well known to MHC. So, but I would like to be consistent and fair.
Thank you. And then Director Port is online if we want to ask him any questions on that one.
Okay.
Councillor Zeid.
I can just add a few other details if it's helpful. We were told that the church's council has been in contact with Mass Historic relative to the inclusion of the parish hall. They've also been engaged with an architectural historian to draft it. Council has begun to draft the amendment, and a photographer has been engaged. So it's not to say any of that guarantees any specific outcome, but to show you some good faith being offered by the applicant for your consideration.
Okay. Further discussion. All right, roll call.
So this is roll call on combined projects 2, 3, and 4, with 4 having a contingency of a condition that a PR is secured. Councillor Zeid.
Yes.
Councillor Callahan.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
Councillor Delay.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Schrack.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
11 yes, motion is approved.
Okay, next is a motion to approve projects 5, 6, and 7.
Second.
Number 5 is St. Paul's Community Hall roof. This is an $82,000 appropriation based on an $82,000 request. Represented by Stuart Tuthill. He explained to us a little bit about the old structure, started in 1711. Seems to be a theme this evening so far, but another historic category request. And so the hall, again, much like the prior application, it was explained to us some of the community utilization of that space, that it's not just for the parishioners of the church, but that many others use it as well. And there are a number of groups that are using it on a regular basis. They are looking to replace the slate roof on the hall. They have spent quite a bit in recent years trying to improve the structure itself and hopefully set it up for some time to come. In this case, the parish hall roof, which is the sort of locus of this specific request, is just over 100 years, and that is about the useful life of a slate roof, so they are basically there. They did spend a little bit of time possibly consider switching to something that was not slate, but I think they mentioned the Historic Commission was very adamant and desired very much that things stay with slate. And so that is the direction they are looking to go, and they've already engaged with different contractors and so forth. And so The $109,000 is the total of the project, and I've stated the 82 is what's coming from here. They already have the difference in hand, so they are basically prepared to go. And was asked, do you think you'll get another 100 years out of the next one? Answer was a resounding, we hope so. So hopefully that will be the case. And then this one also had a preservation restriction question because the parish hall is not covered currently by a preservation restriction. So there was an amendment that was offered here that the PR for the parish hall be completed, but we could use the secured word again to be consistent with that. So that's project 5, that was 3-0. Project number 6, different flavor. This is the priority housing needs. This comes to us under the category of affordable housing. Just as a brief reminder, it is mandatory that at minimum, but no maximum is stated, that 10% of CPA funds on an annual basis must be given to this category. We had Madeline Nash appear before us, the co-chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. And to keep a long story short, they are looking to replenish funds. And so when we say replenish, we're really referring to the outlay that was made from the trust towards the Brown School efforts. And so they have expended $450,000 in this project. In this application, they requested $300 and were recommended to receive $300. That's what's before you tonight. And we did, of course, ask, what are some of the things that you may be using, and they are maybe using the funds for, I should say. They have a number of things they're considering. For example, they've run a rental assistance program and have been able to help 77 households. That's certainly a place that they see an opportunity to work with. Another one is to work with MVPC, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, to update and modernize the housing production plan. And then the third one, which is new-ish or would be new, would be some kind of household or assistance repairing a home. So if somebody was not in a financial position to repair their home, but that could be really important to them being able to stay in their home. The AHT, of course, under certain rules and parameters, may be able to offer funding or assistance to help that person. Some may remember that this was a conversation about 2 years ago. We used to have these community development block grants. I think they were federal government, and they used to fund another program, the name escapes me now, in the city that would help people like replace a roof, for example, in order to be able to not let the building decay and allow the person to stay in their home. So this could be something maybe along those kinds of lines. And then we did have a conversation about, what does it take to incentivize more affordable housing? Could funding be a part of that? And we had a nice conversation about it. There's certainly efforts to keep eyes open and see if there's a way that there could be an incent provided along the way. 3-0 on that one. And finally, project number 7, this is the Open Space Reserve Fund allocation. This is $100,000. This one also requires the 10% minimum, but I would just remind you that bond payments that would qualify under the open space category would count. So this $100,000 is not sufficient to hit 10%, but when you consider the bonds that do, you hit the threshold. This is a fairly classic, allocation. There's no specific land to purchase right now, but they hold the funds in reserve when the opportunity arises. With these funds, they're about near $1 million. So with this, they'd maybe be at or slightly over $1 million, and that would sit and lay in wait until an opportunity were to arise. The most recent open space acquisition we made was in West Newbury a few years ago when we were doing some watershed stuff. So that was 3-0. And those are those 3 projects.
Further discussion. All right, roll call.
So this is roll call on the collective projects 5, 6, and 7, noting that project 5 has the condition that a PR is secured. Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Trek?
Yes.
Councillor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes. Motion
Okay,
passes.
thank you. Anticipating conversation, I'm going to take project 8 by itself. Motion to approve project 8.
Second.
This is the Hale Street Shared Use Pathway East design, $65,000. So this is the so-called Hale Street connector for pedestrian and bicycle traffic and that sort of thing. This project has been discussed over many years and has been the subject of some funding over that period of time. We of course talked about the potential benefit, but I think most of the discussion was around what is the project starting to form into. You heard me in an earlier conversation refer to the quarter mile, so these design funds specifically are to support a segment of what is considered the overall project by many. And so this is going from, I think I wrote this down wrong, going from High to Squires Glen. Did I mean High Street or
Doe Run.
Low?
Really,
Yeah.
To the sidewalk.
Got to talk to my note taker. All right, Doe Run. It was page like 7 of the notes, so bear with me. But okay, so going from Doe Run to Squires Glen, it's about a quarter-mile run. This funding specifically would be to do final design and permitting for the connection. They're not fully sure about what the costs are going to be, but of course they will be looking to seek grant funds. And then we had conversation about, again, what is that sufficient? Is that enough of a project? What does it look like? When would it be completed? We did have a conversation about material, asphalt, which is what's used on the rail trails, for example, versus concrete. Frankly, these were maybe more detailed than where the project is at the moment, but we did probe around them. The planning director, Andy Port, represented this project and said, asphalt's what has historically been used for these wider shared use paths and so forth. Then we talked about neighborhood concerns, things like tree removals and so forth, crosswalks, what would those look like with a sidewalk potentially on one side but not the other? Where do you land people? Things along those lines. And then we also talked about a potential alternative route. Like if you didn't do this, couldn't people go through the neighborhoods? I will gladly defer to the ward councilors who know their streets inside and out much better than I do, but I would say both clearly indicated it, feeling that wasn't the best route for a variety of reasons. So, the project was 3-0, and again, $65,000.
Thank you, Councilor Zede. Councilor Smith.
In the spirit of funding for Ward 5, I'm very supportive of this project. There is a bit of heartburn in terms of it being phased and it only being a quarter mile. I can say both Ward 5 and Ward 6 constituents are looking for a full connection path. And when I speak about future investments, I know in FY25 we funded a master plan for the Little River Trail. That's a clear connection to this. We're not going to that stretch. There's a real opportunity to do a more master plan around connectivity in the West End. So I'm very supportive. I hope you all support Ward 5 and beyond in the future. But one thing I would like to add as a friendly amendment is to require 2 public meetings, one at the inception and one at 50% design. Given this project is a final design, we won't be really able to modify after the design is complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Smith.
Point of order, Councilor Smith, are you asking for an amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Perfect, thank you. So 2 public meetings, one at 50% and
one at initiation.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All right, roll call.
So we're going to vote on the amendment first?
Yes.
So the roll call on the amendment, this is for 2 public meetings, one at initiation and one at 50%. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delai?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Track?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes. And roll call on the total.
As amended. So project 8 as amended with that 2 public meetings. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delai?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Track?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes.
Okay, project number 9, motion to approve, project number 9. Okay, so this is the Woodman Park improvements. Woodman Park has been the subject of a variety of different investments in the last couple of cycles, a basketball court and that sort of thing. So phase 1 and phase 2 are completed. This is phase 3, and phase 3 is really centered around the parking, and that is to basically reconfigure the space, hopefully improve the parking situation down there. If you've been down there for a Little League game, probably know what that's like. And then we talked about materials along the way. And on the brickway, what material will be used? It was indicated that reused brick would be considered, but instead they're looking for, no, I think that's correct, they're going to use brick. In the parking lot, they're going to use a compact gravel that hardens, and that's what the parking lot material would be. And this would then cover the area going to the playground. There were no specific areas for the ballpark area. And then dirt and gravel, how do we mark the lines? They'll just be using like spray paint consistent with what you might see at something like Cherry Hill. So it was 3-0 in committee, and I forgot to mention this was $75,000 was the ask.
Thank you,
And the
Councilor Z.
recommendation.
Further discussion? Roll call.
On project 9, Councillor Z?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes?
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Okay, motion to approve project 10.
Second.
Okay, this is the In-Street and Tracy Square project that we've heard a few times this evening. This project was presented in prior years and was partially funded, but it was not enough. The funding was not enough to complete. Built in the 1970s, Market Square and In-Street and Tracy have existed since then. This project is part of that multi-phase. The lamp posts have been replaced and so on and so forth. We're really talking about improving things like the bricks and replacing things like granite steps, installing larger tree grates. The current ones are much too small, causing heaving and things like that. And then we talked about when was this last done, to the best of the information available. Dates the current materials on the ground date back to 1975, and that's basically just a function of age and so forth. We did get into a conversation about what we decided to call ultimately the catwalk, the walkways that are run above and serve some of the buildings. This project does not have any connection to those. Some money was invested in them in recent years. Some wild conversation about potentially removing them at some point, but challenges is that they serve as an egress for some of those buildings that might need it in order to meet requirements and so forth. So where the conversation ended up going was less so about the project itself, and which was generally deemed, I think, by the committee to be a good project and potentially an acceptable use of CPA, but really on the source of funding. And again, echoing another debate we just had, could the downtown paid parking fund be used for this? And so we did have that conversation for a little while. We did send this out here with no recommendation. That was a 2-to-1 vote, the no recommendation. I was a dissenting vote. I want to pause here and just break because we have this here, which is potentially could be used by all means to fund this from CPA. We have a tabled order that you heard me table earlier in the agenda. What I would like to do, we don't have any more work to do on the project itself. The only debate in my mind that's left is which funding source do you wish to use, if you wish to use any. Certainly if you don't want to support the project, you don't have to. But so these are the paths I see. This can fail, and that can fail. That's a no. This can pass, and the other one can be received and filed, or you can flip that order and do them the other way. But I would like to dispose of the other matter this evening as well, because, and with an emergency preamble, just because that's necessary at this point. But again, we can debate the project, but really what we're debating is the funding sources. So you have the motion on the floor here. Just to explain the mechanics, I'd have to wait for this whole order to be done, and then I can motion to take that off the table, and I would offer an emergency preamble and put it up to vote. I'm not trying to predispose any outcome. I'm just explaining to you how it could be done.
So just a discussion about where the money's coming from.
Where's the money coming from?
All right, so Councillor Cameron, then Councillor Hall.
Yeah, if I could just ask through the president, ask the chair of Budget and Finance. So if we voted to receive and file the CPC request, and whatever that amount is, does that leave a gap in CPC that needs to be spent, or is it unspent, roll over into a next year, or what happens there?
Yeah, well, legally, it does not need to be spent. It is acceptable to have money roll over. As a practical matter, and the conversation in committee was that this project and the Fuller Field are almost have parity in costs, so that this freeing up this money to go from downtown would allow the Fuller Field to elevate to a position to be funded, and that CPC could reconsider that project and issue a recommendation. Again, practically speaking, my understanding is they will consider it, I think, or have. I don't know when your meeting was. They have not yet, but would be open to considering it. Again, I can't make the outcome, but I can just tell you what the conversation is. And because we need their recommendation, that's mandatory, has to be recommended, and then with that, we can take it, and it's all timely. And I also understand that the Fuller Field folks could spin that fast enough to make that meritorious, like make it worth the effort, if that helps.
Thank you, Councillor Z. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, just wanted to say I was happy to see the mayor submitting that transfer from downtown parking for this project. I do support using the downtown parking funds, giving the CPC some leeway here. The idea of having some money roll over to next year is attractive, especially when we're talking about it being a tight year. Likewise, if they're able to fund Fuller Field, I know there was some discussion in their committee about that perhaps that they could fund that the following year. It didn't seem maybe as urgent as some of the other projects. That's for them to decide. Perhaps funding it this year would be less expensive than funding it next year. But I would love to just give them that leeway to have that extra money and make that decision.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harmon.
I wasn't aware of this. Glad as well to see the mayor providing a viable alternative path. I think more options are good, so I guess I would be in favor of not supporting this as a CPC application, and with the knowledge that we'll have an opportunity to bring the transfer forward later.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harmon.
So I'll withdraw my motion and replace it with a receive and file of Project 10.
Second.
All right, further discussion on that. So let's roll call on the receive and file for this one.
This is the receive and file Project 10. Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Okay, we will continue with a motion to approve 11, 12, and 13.
Second.
11 is the Jason Sawyer fencing project, $22,000. If you're not familiar with the Jason Sawyer Playground, it is on Plum Island at the point. It is definitely a Plum Island one in the sense that there's blurred property lines and all the good things that make it fun. This land is actually owned by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, the state, in other words, but the playground does belong to the city. Some months ago, DCR reached out to the city. I can just sidebar and say I ended up going to a bunch of meetings as the ward councilor, but they were raising really safety issues around the park, around the playground, pardon me. Again, it's a challenging environment because it's sand. It's not your typical, urban park where you have the bouncy foam or wood chips or things like that. So it really does center around security issues, safety issues, I should say, to be more accurate. And DPS and specifically Parks has been making efforts to address some of the concerns that they have raised around the surface and all these different things I learned about that go with playgrounds. But this, one of their main concerns was really the fencing. And you can look at a sat view of it or go out there, but there's basically it's a partial fence. It doesn't surround the entire playground, and that's considered a key part of playground safety. So I will say that we've worked very hard to attenuate their asks, which at one point seemed to rise to the level of replacing the entire playground at seven-figure cost. So this is a request to put in a fence around it to address that concern. It's, at least to my knowledge, it's not anticipated to be the first of many asks. It's the ask, and hopefully that gets us to a better place with them. It was 3-0. That's the open space and recreation category. Number 12, Brown School outdoor space, $14,999, which we did ask about why not the extra $1, but they don't need it, so that's fine. And the reason they don't need it is this is an ask to start thinking about or designing with a landscape architect what the remaining public space of the Brown School could, would, or should look like. The $14,900 and change comes from a specific proposal that they received. So again, without pulling up the map, you remember we're disposing of part of the property, but we're leaving sort of a rectangle that is protected by Article 97, so think outdoor space for the public. And so this money is also designed, or is also destined to create final design and permitting, but of course no money for construction at that point. That may be the subject of a future CPA ask. There's Brown School funds potentially that could be used for it. Then we asked a little bit about the amphitheater and the basketball, but again, no specific information is yet available. Similar to the condition you heard applied, we had added a very similar one in committee, so it was a motion to approve this 12 conditioned on a minimum of 2 public meetings, one at 25% design and one at 75% design, and that was 3-0. also open space. All right, Project 13 is your Lower Atkinson multi-court. A lot of conversation about, Pioneer League and that whole area over the many recent years. We have the new parking areas that were completed, the new playground that has been completed. So this is for a part of it. This is really for the courts. So this is like a whole replacement, removal of all of the courts, creation of new courts, and then striping and so forth to support, as you heard, basketball, pickleball, and so forth. And we did have a little bit of conversation. Obviously, the multi-sport aspect of this, which really means pickleball, has been the subject of much debate. There was some discussion about, may need to limit hours to reduce load on neighbors and that sort of thing. And then we asked, well, how would those be enforced? And there are court rules posted at many courts around the city. I know a lot about this from my ward in Perkins, so those are some things, but no really major concerns were brought up, for example, by the ward council or anything. So I think there's an awareness of those concerns. There's a desire to try and mitigate them to the extent that's possible, and that's something that you need to weigh in your conversation. And then something else, but I'll leave that alone. All right, so it was a motion to approve in the end, and that one was 3-0 with no specific conditions. So that is your 11, 12, and 13.
Thank you, Councillor Z. Further discussion? All right, roll call on the 11, 12, and 13.
So this is on projects 11, 12, and 13 with the condition on project 12 that 2 public meetings will be held at 25% and 75% design. Councillor Z?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Truck?
Yes.
Councillor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
I think you're fine. That's up to you. All right, go ahead. You can have it. Motion to approve what's titled in the order as the FY27 CPA obligations. That's the NHS Stadium bond payment, $125,250. 255 Cherry Hill Soccer Field bond payment, $10,865. Fuller Field track renovation Phase 2 bond payment, $49,000. Market Landing Park bond payment, $260,000, and administrative costs, $14,000. So these are fairly pro forma. The first 4 are bonds. These are already issued bonds. This is the debt service to support them. Do you have to approve them? No, but I suppose that's sort of like not paying your mortgage. And the administrative costs, just for anybody who's new, one member of the planning office, their salary part of it is apportioned to here as they support the CPC, and the $14,000 has been a long-standing number. It was 3-0 in committee for these 5, pardon me.
Thank you, Councillor Z. Discussions? Roll call.
Roll call on the CPA obligations for FY27. Councillor Z?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon is recused. Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shand?
Yes.
And yes, 1 recused, motion passes.
All right, that concludes our CPA for 2026, absent maybe one more project if it chooses to come in. So we will move on to the last couple of matters for budget, which is a motion to approve transfer 253.
Second.
Thank you for coming back in and seconding right away. This is $44,000 from the police officers' salary or personnel to a variety of different ones. Best I could summarize this as it's a beginning of sort of an cleanup at the end of the fiscal year. The police department is either running a deficit in certain lines or anticipating a deficit being created before the end of the fiscal year. And in this case specifically, they are in a position where they can cover those deficits from within the department. So we're taking money from police officers in the amount of $44,100 and then putting it all across a variety of different lines. That would be heat, electricity, maintenance of building, maintenance of equipment, medical expenses, licensing, warranty, and contracts. It looks like body-worn cameras and travel, training, and so forth. I think what we took away most from committee was that they put 4 officers through the training academy, and that created a sort of an outfitting cost sort of thing that, in some sense, caught up with them. That's the equipment one. You see the $12,500. A lot of the ones are a little bit less weighty individually, and they need to cover those. From a budget perspective, being able to cover it from within the department is a positive thing. On the other hand, and we did ask this, these may have to be reckoned with in the next budget because those 4 officers are going to be online and they may have to be done. It is a Scrivener's error that under the explanation it says a different amount. So was just a Scrivener's error. It was 3-0 in committee.
Thank you, Councillor Zede. Further discussion? All those in favor of approving transfer 253, say aye. Aye.
All right, that's it for matters tonight. Thank you. 2 quick things. One is budget process is sort of live or getting to be alive. I don't know. I emailed all of you the prospective dates. What I want you to hopefully hang on to is that the dates are pretty firm, but the topics are not. So in order to accommodate department heads who may not be able to make it, for example, the schools have already reached out. They may not be able to make the suggested date. But we'll try and hold those dates so that you can have some confidence that we're not going to move around to other things. Those will be or are posted. Will be posted for the public, so you'll have a long-range look at the entire budget process, culminating with a special meeting in the month of June to give us meet the 45 days and all of that. So any questions about that, you're welcome to ask. I will continue to put out information as we get closer. And then finally, budget ingested 2 very large bond orders tonight that need to be dealt with. They are the loan order for the Indian Hill Story Ave pump station and the water meter replacements. Just because of the way things are falling, we are going to at least start this conversation on Thursday. As a reminder, as a bond, these need to stay for at least 30 days or a cycle, so it's not like we're going to push them out unless we want to waive the rules. But what I really need your help on is, if you want financial analyses, if you want spreadsheets, if you want numbers, if you want details on technical stuff, please ask. But my current trajectory would be, my guess is that these would come and go with the budget at some point because there's going to be an underlying impact to rates. So rather than do things disjointed, more than likely we'll get the conversation going, we'll get the budget, we'll get the proposed water sewer rates as you saw on the calendar, and then we have to figure out how to make all those puzzle pieces fit together. So that's the best I can tell you right now. And fortunately, that's it for budget.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Khan.
you for your
Councillor
patience.
Hall?
Is the transfer that's on the table,
Yes.
are we going to?
I can do it now, or I can do...
Budget and finance, or?
No, actually, I can do it now. Okay, motion to remove transfer, I believe is 254 from the table.
Second.
And then...
We're going to vote on that.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. Lay it
Roll
on
call.
the table.
Getting ahead of
So
myself.
this is a roll call to remove transfer 254 from the table. Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shan. So it's off the table.
Okay, motion to waive the rules and establish an emergency under in the interest of allowing the project to continue on its path, and with the knowledge that the council, especially the Committee on Budget, has already taken up the subject matter on this.
Roll call?
Roll call on the emergency preamble. Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve transfer 254.
Second.
So I was really a proponent of this in committee because I felt like it was a good alignment of source of funds, but we've touched upon downtown paid parking. What is this animal? So I just wanted to address that a little bit. First, there's about $1 million in there today. This transfer is $221,000. That's the amount you know about the project. Don't need to cover that. So that would leave about $800. This fund obviously is, before we had this fund, paid parking was a little bit more challenging, but the way that it works today, just so you can understand, is every time you put money in the meter or anything happens with parking, it goes into this paid parking fund. Once a year when we get the budget, you'll note there's like a parking department in the budget. It's got a certain amount of money that the clerk, when she wears her parking clerk hat, basically administrates. That's a one-time transfer every year from the paid parking fund. That amount of transfer is not equal to the total amount that comes in. There's a difference. The difference is in what in a business world would be the profit. And so that's what allows the balance to continue to escalate. It's been, it's been growing for some years. It's had some other years where it didn't do as well, like the parking garage was a big debate on this and so forth. But as of today, It does have the $1 million in it. You heard me read the order about what it can be used for, which is always germane to the conversation. And then the last thing I want to say about it is, even though at times the balance grows, this is considered the capital piggy bank for the parking program itself. So the parking program has vehicles and kiosks as two primary physical assets. Of course, the parking garage is a big physical asset too, but it's still relatively new. But so when a vehicle goes, is done, and we did this a couple years ago, when a kiosk breaks, and I understand that some things may be coming up on end of life. So just giving you some flavor and color on what this thing is used for and so forth. Obviously, as a proponent, I think this is a sensible take, and we should draw down some of it and be reasonable with that.
Thank you, Councilors Lead. Further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on approving transfer 254. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delai?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Truck?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Point of information,
There's someone
there
outside.
are two people waiting for the last thing on the agenda. I was just wondering if,
Councilor Khan.
Yes, can we?
do we waive, was it 17?
You're going to waive the rules?
Yeah,
get
I have
out
to
of
do
order.
invoke Rules 7F
Okay,
to take item, sorry,
I'll go down.
thank you.
It's a lucky day.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon.
Thank you. Yeah, so motion to invoke Rule 7F, which is chair of a committee can take any matter out of committee and bring to the floor for discussion, and that's Order 822, poll request for State Street.
Second?
I need a second.
Sure, second.
Is that a second? Yes. Great. So, yeah, so now motion to remove Order 822, poll request State Street.
Second.
Oh, wait, we need to vote
We
on
need to
7F
vote.
first.
We have a first and a second on it to invoke Rule 7, and we're going to vote, you can do it just a...
Regular? All right, all those in favor of invoking Rule 7F, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Now motion to remove Order 822 from Public Works and Safety.
So you just removed it, so now you...
I thought we had to do two things.
No, so now you can make the motion to what you would like to do.
Okay, yeah,
to
so
dispose of
motion
it.
to approve Order 822, poll request State Street.
Second.
So thank you, and I thank you guys for waiting this long. So this was, as folks know, we did talk about it in committee. Our committee meeting was on Thursday, so we were not able to make it in time for the packet. We were also trying to make sure, because of the design change from being an overhead to actually underground, I think part of the logistics is we didn't know if it had to be reintroduced as a new kind of poll hearing situation, and that is definitely not the case. So hence, we're going to go ahead and approve this. I do want to make a correction, which I do believe the map is now updated to the correction. So when it was transitioned from overhead to underground, there was something on the drawing that actually included a bar that is not needed on an existing pole, and one of the abutters noted that in the drawing actually, and reached out to me to say that that would be problematic. And I did reach out to National Grid, talk with John Butler, so you're welcome to come, and if you wanted to share a little bit about the revised drawing and understanding, because that was something that abutter was concerned, to make sure that the drawing does not make that happen to that pole.
When I had the drawing redone and resubmitted, I missed it myself, and like there was an anchor on that would have been added to the pole. If we'd gone across the street, we would have needed it for overhead support. And someone noticed that it was on the new petition, the new drawing. It hadn't been taken off. Did you get my copy that I
think
sent to you?
I did not get it, but did you? Okay, so no one got it. So maybe what we can do, apologies, I did see an updated drawing. So that was the underground.
That's the one, yeah.
There's a copy for each, if they want to look at it.
Yes, I think we should just make sure everyone, so I will,
The stapled ones.
yep, so I'll let you put on that side. Maybe to that side, that they can, here you guys go. So I think the process, and apologies on this one, and maybe clerk, you could let us know in terms of updating so the public is aware that this is corrected. I think that's the main thing.
We can put it on tomorrow and just
Okay.
update it to the meeting and to the poll hearings.
So if you were to look at this drawing, which is the second page, as folks get it, compared to what we got, the existing, it's the pole at the corner of 114. That existing pole there had already shown that it was going to have an anchor on it, and that is now removed, and that's the big difference here. So this one, we also have the developer, Mr. Wilcox here, who has been working with the city, and there's a couple of questions that came up with the underground, and I would love to have DPS Director Turner also come up, because there was some discussion as we met on site, given that we had just recently paved State Street, and we did talk about it a little bit in committee too. Is there a moratorium in digging up a street? Is that, the expectation is 5 years, and while there's nothing definitive, it's something we thought we could think about policy-wise. But Director Turner could talk a little bit more about something that the attorney who's working with the developer had suggested, and that was setting up a escrow fund, right? So did you want to share a little bit about that, since I thought that was a great approach?
Thank you, Councilor Khan.
Sure. So we've heard from predecessors of directors at DPS that there's a 5-year moratorium on digging up streets that are recently paved. However, that's not written, I've came to discover. So we are going to be creating a policy that is a written policy around that. That said, it is still not the preference of DPS to dig a street that's recently paved. If it's not an emergency situation, I see that by the council rejecting the overhead situation and wanting it to be underground, it does create a emergency situation, because I have to allow them to have power to their building. However, we were discussing with the attorney and the developer on site that there would be some funds put into an escrow account to hopefully take care of any potential settling of the street, and also going to be working with the developer's engineer to create a detail that would hopefully prevent any of that settling from happening, which would then be included in our packet of tools when we're having these conversations in the future. So the hope is to come forward with a moratorium and a series of details around how we would allow that sort of street opening to happen on newly paved streets.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I have nothing more to add. If there are any questions, we do have the National Grid representative here, as well as developer, and then DPS Director.
I see Councilor Zeid's hand, then Councilor Smith.
Just in the interest of getting the form correctly, so I think what we're really doing is we're amending 822 to replace the picture that was 822 with this.
Yes.
So I would like to make that formally that we need to strike that other map out and replace it with this. This now corrected one without the guy wire on the pole too, just so we can skip right to the correct one. I'll start with that, maybe.
Is that a motion?
Yes, motion to amend to replace the map and the explanation, essentially to strike 822 and replace
then
it with this.
The second was Councilor Harmon. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, want to vote on that one? Is there discussion on that? Okay, we can vote. All those in favor of replacing the map, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Councilor Zeid, then Councilor Smith.
Okay. I just want to offer another amendment. So I'd make a motion that we amend to amend the approval to condition it upon an escrow account being set up and papered, for lack of a better term, to an amount agreed upon by the DPS director. I don't think we can figure out how much it should be tonight, but they need to work out what that is and execute some kind of paper that says this is the escrow, and I'm sure the developer would want to know if and when he may get his funds back if they're not needed. So I'll make that motion.
All right.
Is that clear for the clerk? Good enough? Okay.
All right, discussion. Councilor Smith?
So I had a specific question on the condition for this particular order, since it's with National Grid, and then the agreement is with the developer, and how we would handle that. Would the condition be on this, or would it need to be a separate thing to codify it?
Councilor Zeid, you seem to be ready to answer that.
I'll just give you my answer, which is I'm not conditioning this, I'm conditioning the order. The order is an order of the city council, so we're mandating that our approval is conditioned upon that, and the parties need to execute it, so.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Councilor Smith?
Sort of. Do we need to specify who the agreement is being made with?
Our order states it is with National Grid.
Well,
Or
I'm
the
happy
city
to,
is just, here's the poll.
Yeah, just say with the property owner of, is it 112? No.
112.
Is it
105 State Street.
With the property owner of 105.
Yep.
I get the confusion about the sort of tripartite, but we can condition it as we see fit,
Okay.
in my opinion.
All right. Further discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor of the latest, say aye.
Aye.
It's getting late.
It's the best
All
you
right.
can do.
So, did we do the final one? We
Not
did.
yet. That's the
Okay,
last
yes, so motion to approve as amended, order 822.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. So we can go back to our regularly scheduled agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon, for seeing them.
Trips in the hall.
All right. Councilor Cameron, Community Services.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 656 to the Curtis Fund Committee.
Second.
Thank you. This is an appointment of Sean Fenn, who's the mayor's chief of staff, and just as a bit of reminder for those of us who were on the last council, so the Curtis Fund settlement agreement was approved by the City Council in 2024, so this is the former mayor of Newburyport from about 100 years ago or so, if memory serves, in committing to support various endeavors, charitable purposes within the city. And then in 2025, we, and with some input from the administration, a lot of council debate, we had an order that passed that established a special review committee. Ended up being 7 different members, 1 member of the administration, 2 members of the city council, 4 members of the public. The 4 members of the public were supposed to represent each a different ward in the city, and then when we were getting people on this in the initial phase, we did end up trying to have everybody from a different ward in the city. Obviously, there's 7 people in 6 wards, and these 2 appointments actually line up, so we do have representation. So the committee, Community Services, met at our last meeting on April 21st. We did vote 3-0 to inflict further pain on Chief of Staff Fenn, who has been appointed by the mayor, subject to our approval, replacing Kim Turner, who was the mayor's designee. And Chief of Staff Fenn does live in Ward 2, so that does cover one of our wards. And just, interested, certainly representing the mayor's office, but has had a lot of past interest. We did not approve his appointment as chief of staff, but I think a lot of us, we did see his resume. A lot of interest in community affairs in other communities and in Newburyport as well, and has a good understanding of how, how this presents a great opportunity. And last year, the allocation was kind of done fairly quickly because it was all kind of new and coming up, and I believe a good portion of this is supporting the rec center, but it will be evaluated every year. The other members, again, represent every ward of the city, and also Councillor Delay and Councillor Callahan are the city council's representatives appointed by the city council president. So we did have a discussion about just sort of, bringing people on board. And as the mayor's designee, I believe that would mean Mr. Fenn would be the chair of it. And is that true? No. Okay, he's shaking his head. All right, I retract that statement. But we did approve this appointment 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cameron. Further discussion? All right, roll call.
Roll call on appointment 656, Sean Fenn to the Curtis Fund. Councilor Zeeb?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Counselor Delay?
Yes.
Counselor Hall?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Nikotich?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Track?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 656, Meg McDonald to the Curtis Fund.
657.
657, thank you.
Second.
I was just testing you.
I was paying attention.
So we did also approve this appointment 3-0. So Meg McDonald's been here for 3 years. She moved here with her husband, 2 children who are middle schoolers. She's a small business owner in town. She's a therapist, which she offered. I'm not disclosing confidential information. And she's been very active. They lived in Maryland. They were involved in the PTA and local food bank, and she's looking for a way to get involved. Heard about this opportunity, apparently in a discussion with the mayor. And she had reviewed a little bit about what the Curtis Fund's done so far, and just she's interested in getting opinions before making her own opinion. She knows often when there's, limited resources and lots of good ideas to fund that, it's important to be open to others' ideas. She is from Ward 1, which covers one of our bases, and seemed very enthusiastic. She offered to be here tonight, and I said, you don't really have to be, but she took time to meet with us while she was on family vacation for school weekend, so she zoomed in, and I think we agree that she'd be a great addition to this, and again, as a 3-year resident, it's good to have new people getting involved, so we did approve 3-0.
Thank you, Counselor Cameron. Further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on appointment 657, Megan McDonald to the Curtis Fund. Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Callahan?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Counselor Delay?
Yes.
Counselor Hall?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Nikotich?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Track?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion to receive and file appointment 661.
Second.
Thank you. So this is Annie Maurer, and after this appointment was sent to us, it's a reappointment. Our Council on Aging terms changed in 2022. I know councilors here put a lot of work into that. And the term limit is 3 consecutive 3-year terms, so 9 years. And after this was submitted to us, it was realized that Annie would be hitting that time in May. So she will not be reappointed, and the mayor will need to submit an additional person. So the proper way to handle it would be just to receive and file. And we thank her for her service over the last 9 years.
Thank you, Counselor Cameron. Discussion? All those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye.
Aye. And that is it. We'll be meeting next Monday at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
A couple of appointments.
Counselor Delay.
All right. I'd like to offer a motion to approve application 308.
Second.
All right, I want to thank Kevin Hudson, who's here with us, one of the co-chairs, who's been here for almost 3 hours. Thank you for sticking around. The applicant is the Newburyport Pride Committee, seeking approval for the use of city streets and parks for their 6th annual Pride Parade and their 4th annual festival, which will be on June 6th from 12 to 4. The parade participants will gather at the Bartlett Mall starting at 11 a.m., with the parade beginning at noon. From the courthouse, the parade will travel down Green Street, turn right onto Merrimack, go through Market Square, then right onto State Street, right onto Pleasant Street. It then loops back on itself, turning right again on Green Street, right on Merrimack, and then onto the Waterfront Park, where the festival is being held this year. The parade is expected to end between 12:45 and 1 p.m. when they will transition to the festival, and they are anticipating some 2,000 participants. There will be 11 officers assigned to the parade route, and traffic will be diverted as the parade progresses. Water and Merrimack Street traffic will be diverted to High Street via Federal and Market Streets. A list of the intersections in the downtown area that will be impacted is attached to their application material. The Pride Committee has also agreed to post this information on their website and include it in social media posts as we get closer to the event. Again, the festival will be at Waterfront Park, and the committee has already obtained approval from the Waterfront Trust for the use of the park. I just want to thank the Pride Committee for their continued effort and commitment to making this event happen here in Newburyport, and of course, wish them a safe and successful event.
Thank you, Councilor Delay. Discussion. All those in favor of application 308, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you. We're sorry. I did not realize you were here for 3 hours.
Fifth year parade, fourth year.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Fifth year pride, fourth year parade.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. See you on the 6th.
Apologize for taking these a little bit out of order, but we do have, I think, somebody else online, so a motion to invoke Rule 7F to allow application 310 to be removed from license and permits and brought to the floor for the full council.
Second.
All right, let's vote on that. All those in favor of bringing out, is that a roll call or? No. Okay, all those in favor of invoking 7F for 310, say aye.
Aye. All right, a motion to approve application 310.
Second.
Okay. I believe with us this evening is Steve Lutz on Zoom. The applicant was unable to be at our April 21st meeting. He is with us this evening. We'd like to bring this to the council as delaying the approval into May would have an adverse impact on the scheduling of the parklet installation, given the adjacency of Angie's to Loretta's. This application is 320 square feet, 8 tables, 28 chairs on Pleasant Street. The setup appears to be the same as in prior years.
Is that the motion?
There was a motion made and seconded.
Okay, sorry.
Discussion. Councilor Nikotich.
If we're doing these individually, which is great,
Just this one.
You are going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
But are we going to go through all of the parklet applications tonight?
Point of order, the motion on the floor is just for the application right now.
Right, just application
So just
310.
application 310 right now.
Okay.
For discussion.
So what I'm going to say about this application, I will, rather than repeat, I will try to make clear that I will say it for any application with sidewalk and parklet seating. So I am a big fan of Angie's. It's one of my favorite restaurants downtown. I am a fan of outdoor dining, so it is not about that. I like the parklets, but at least going back to 2022, I can remember discussions within the council about complaints of parklets and sidewalk seating together. And I hear them now as the ward councilor. So while I support parklets, just as a matter of also supporting the residents and maybe visitors who find it uncomfortable to walk down a sidewalk when there's some diners on both sides of them, I am going to vote no on this application.
Thank you. Councilor Callahan.
Thank you, Council President. I just have we talked about this in the meeting. I guess I'm still confused. The applications for parklets are the street. Mm-hmm. While the drawings may show sidewalk sketches and such, we're voting on the, I don't know how to say this because it's so confusing. The parklet is the streetscape. Even though places like Angry Donut and Oregano and Bar 25 don't actually have a street thing, I don't think that the sidewalk seating is relevant to the parklet application, even though it may be in their drawings. And I have photos from 2019 of me sitting in front of Paddle Inn way before parklets came out. And there was a bunch of discussion about what you need to apply for and whatnot for sidewalks. I just want to make sure that these applications, while they may have a drawing of tables on the sidewalks, those are independent of the parklet itself that we're voting on.
So if I could just add a little institutional knowledge to this, so when we started it. So when this program started, there was a separate application before parklets were a thing. There was a separate application that came before City Council for sidewalk seating on the sidewalks. When the parklets became a thing at 2020, the application morphed to include both. And then it has, and I've spoken with Chair Delay with this, that it has changed over the years as parklets now are more spoken about as being what's in the street. However, the application still includes that piece of it. They haven't been separated out again. So what my understanding is that we need to work to separate it out, to have two separate applications, but as it stands right now, the way we have handled it since 2020, it has been one application. So the drawings that are coming in with tables on the sidewalks, those are part of the entire, it's as if there's two applications together. Part of it's the parklet, part of it is the sidewalk seating as well. So you're approving both.
Is the square footage included in the sidewalk seating?
Square footage only speaks to the part that's in the street, the parklet. It's not speaking to the part that's up against the building.
Yes, so I think that's an important part of clarification. I was going to address it a little bit later as well, but the application as it stands before us has a square footage designation, and that square footage does only represent the parklets, as I understand. Therefore,
so when it comes,
the square footage doesn't include the sidewalk, then my perspective would be we're voting on the parklets, but not the sidewalk tables.
So the application for 310 that's before you is the square footage that you're voting on for the cost is for what's in the street. There is no cost to the square footage up against the building. It is one application that speaks to both seating arrangements. The pricing is only to what's in the street.
Right.
Going forward, we will work together to create two separate.
The pricing and the square footage.
The square footage, so for this application, the square footage that they applied for that's in your application that's before you is the square footage that they're being charged for. It does not include anything that's up against the building for Angie's. It only includes what's in the street for them.
Right.
So it's whatever their...
Councillor Zaid?
So I'm just trying to get to what the public policy question is, if I may, through the chair, perhaps sort of query, like what's the direction here? Allow the sidewalk but not the parklet, or parklet, pick one? Is that sort of the theory, or is the sidewalk dining itself problematic? As you know, efforts are underway to try and sort of reform this thing that we came out with very quickly, and trying to figure that out. I myself had a lot of heartburn about parklets when they first started. Now we've generated years of data and experiences, but what is the core issue? And I agree, by the way, that the 12.1.8 calls for sidewalks. We're very focused on the parklets, but the sidewalks actually do have a permitting process of their own. So I'm trying to figure out what is the public policy question in the debate here.
I think that Councillor July, correct me if I'm wrong, tonight we're talking about parklets.
Yep.
It's just that square footage. So Councillor July?
As I understand it, we are just talking about parklets. We had asked the question of the clerk, is there a box on the application that one would check off for the sidewalk? And there is not. As the clerk mentioned, the square footage that we're looking at, the pricing we're looking at is all related to the parklets. I had asked specifically about what the process was for sidewalks, because on the list of all of the application measures, there is nothing listed at all for approval of a sidewalk. And I think, if I'm understanding correctly from the clerk, in the past, applications for sidewalks came in as a communication to the council, not as an application that was approved, but merely as a communication. So from our perspective, and I don't want to represent the perspectives of, but from my thinking, the committee, as they were voting on these applications, was looking at the parklets.
I just had one more thing.
Councillor Callahan?
That is true what Councillor Delay said. I will say that every applicant, despite all the weirdness that we've just been talking about, sidewalks, parklets, they all expect, if they have a table on their drawing, that this is one vote. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Khan?
Yeah, thank you very much, Council President. So maybe what I would suggest is we amend it and we remove the sidewalk images on the graphic and approve it as it is as a parklet. Is that an option?
Why would I do that? I think that's not just because I think it was, when we first started this, and Clerk Sullivan, tell me if I'm wrong here, seating on the sidewalk was free. It was a communication, it always happened. And now that parklets have come along, now we're getting both, and we merged the two together. So sidewalk seating was always a freebie, it was a communication. Now we have both, and it's expected. So we need to go back and, maybe not this year, but in the future, figure out what we do want to do. To the Ward 2 councilors' concerns, it is awkward walking through the tables during the summer months. So I think as a body, we probably ought to look at that in the future, but for tonight, I think the discussion is just on the parklets themselves. Councilor Harmon, did that answer your question?
I think so. So when we, sorry, 1 second. So if we approve this, then we're also approving these 2 tables.
Yes, we're approving.
Even though the discussion on table is parklets.
Correct. That's how it's been done for the last 4 years.
In 2020, from what I can see, we took when the ordinance was written for parklets, we took the application form that was used historically for those sidewalk tables, and we added to it and created one application. For better or worse, that's what we did. So that is the only application that anyone has. So for instance, when a storefront comes in and they want to have merchandise like the Basin did, they use the same process, only they're just they're not asking for street space. It's absolutely problematic and we need to fix it, but that's, I think in 2020, we were just trying to figure out a way to make it work, and that's how it was done. We definitely need to pull it apart and create separate applications for separate uses, if that's the wish of the body. But for tonight, I think Councilor Delay and President Shannon are correct that these applicants are expecting, as years past, this is how they have been approved, and there is no other application for them to use other than this one.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Harmon.
Thank you. If the clerk hadn't just set me up perfectly, I would not have wasted everyone's time with this comment. But since we're talking about it, I think the spirit of Councilor Zeid's question was to understand, while it's on the floor, what are the sort of assumptions around the table for this future policy with corrections in applications, permit process, et cetera. But I would strongly encourage that any view on sidewalk tables also connect directly to sidewalk tents, sidewalk clothing racks, things like that. And I think that's a bigger discussion, and with our downtown businesses, they rely on a lot of this stuff. But I think, if I'm not to put words into Councilor Nikitich's mouth, but I think the complaints and concerns are largely around accessibility. And if we don't think that we have enough room for a table, we also should not have enough room for other things. I'm not saying how I feel about that, but I think for future policy, we should try to get all of that right at once. Thank you.
And I will add, the ADA coordinator downstairs does go out throughout the summer and make sure that we do have, ADA compliance is being met. So, Councilor Nikitich.
So I'm not sure about that, and I'm not sure actually I can't say what the policy is. That's something I think that we are going to talk about when the new framework comes out. But to me, there is a difference between tables and chairs with people in them and a rack of clothing. Because people sitting at a table move the chairs, and they're people, and even if it's ADA compliant, that doesn't mean there's enough room, and it doesn't mean it doesn't make it uncomfortable for people on the sidewalk to sort of walk through these what becomes a restaurant with tables on both sides. So that is more how I think people who have complained look at it. It's not the sidewalk sales. It's not the definitely, as long as the sidewalk is ADA compliant, I don't think anyone has an issue with that. It is more the restaurant setups, and I hope that we can get this resolved for next year.
Thank you. Bring this back in. The motion on the floor is for application 310. So,
Yep.
Is there further discussion on application 310? All right. All those in favor of approving application, Councilor Khan?
Yeah, sorry. I guess I'm trying to understand. So section 12-1.8, use of public way sidewalk. and then A, food service establishments utilizing the sidewalk. Are we saying that that section with licenses and renewal licenses doesn't apply here? Because there's a parklet section. So I guess I'm just confused. If I could get clarity.
I just want to, my interpretation is that in the past, whatever's happened in the past, starting around 2018, it seems like the sidewalk applications were essentially administratively approved by the clerk's office, and then a communication, it was received as a communication by the council. There was not an approval by the council of the sidewalks, it was administratively approved. So from my impression, from my perspective, the tables were on the sidewalk were provided to us as this is how it's going to be set up, but we did not interpret our approval to extend to the sidewalks, which had historically been administratively approved, rather that we were focused on the sidewalk. So and I'm not saying that's how it should be. It's clear that there are some idiosyncrasies about the way we treat different uses that need to be addressed, but for purposes of this year and ensuring that we were not upsetting the apple cart, changing the rules without proper notice to these businesses, we continued in the same spirit as in the past.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't see a rule change, because I do remember us looking at images, I don't know, I'm looking to those who are on the council with me, of the sidewalk seating, and we would discuss the tables and stuff, and we did that. So I just want to make sure that section 12-1.8, the use of the public way sidewalk and the whole license section is not valid?
So
I'm still confused, and if we could have
Councillor
Councillor
Z?
Z.
All right, I'll do my best. 12.1.8 absolutely applies. There's no, it's on the books, it's a valid ordinance, and what it says is, what's interesting about it is there's only one shall in it, and the shall is that the applicant must apply to the city council. Then underneath that, there's a bunch of may. If it's an initial license, the council may approve a license. If it's a renewal without material changes, which we've seen in various ways, I may have written this one, I can't remember, but no material changes may be issued by administrative approval by the city clerk, and or may be issued by the city council with material changes by a majority vote. So it absolutely exists. I think what you're hearing is that life is not perfect. So we need to get to a resolution, and these applications are not consistent. Some include the sidewalk portion and some don't, and I just don't think we're going to be able to solve that problem tonight. So there's only a couple of ways to think about this. First, there's like the public policy question, which is what is it people want to see happen? Are you saying you don't want them to have the sidewalk, or you do, or only under certain conditions, or you want to change it? And again, to the chair's point, it's April whatever, so keep that in mind. And then the second question is, the clerk is a may. They may issue, but if they don't, then it does fall to the council. That's how this works. The application is the shall, that's the done. It's the done is that it's a combined application now. We may not want to do that next year, but that's what was done this year under that understanding. So yes, it absolutely applies. It's in this picture. It's subject to your discussion. It's not in some of the other pictures, but I would assume that you're approving both when you vote on these, and if you wanted to amend them, I suppose you could, but much like the parklets discussion in general, I'm not sure this is the right time. That's me editorializing, but I'm not sure this is the best time to solve these problems, personally.
If I may, if it helps as well, I think when they were coming in as communications prior to 2020, that section was kind of looked at again, and that's probably why it became a combination application where everything then comes before the council. It's not perfect.
It was from 2022. That was amended in
22.
2022, March.
So that's not perfect, and we can certainly work with this body to fix that and make it something that is easier to digest. But it's what we have this year.
Councillor Nicotic.
So now it raises a question, because I remember that one restaurant downtown did have sidewalk seating, but it never came into the council as a parklet, and I thought, well, maybe that's because it was just the sidewalk seating. So will you still get communications for your approval of just the sidewalk tables?
That's a good question. What has happened in the past is people that didn't want in the street still filled out that same application. So if you go back a couple of years, you will see that there were some of the restaurants didn't go in the street, like Coffee Factory is a good example, but they did have an application that came before council in like 2022 or maybe 2023.
Right, no, and we have that also this year, but, so I'll be specific. Stonecrust Pizza, they used the sidewalk last summer, and I don't remember seeing an application, and there wasn't an application this year.
So that is an additional question of, we don't have an application from them, and then the question becomes, what is the enforcement of that?
Life is not perfect.
It is not perfect. We did our best in 2020. Here we are. The 7-year itch.
I can say that when something is brought, I mean, we don't go out and look for infractions as the clerk's office, but when somebody calls us and says something to us like, somebody's got tables and chairs and they're encroaching on the sidewalk, we will send out an application to them and say, you do need to apply. So if that's happening, let the office know, we'll send them the application. But that's the extent of what.
I'll just make a practical suggestion that, I'm trying to, along with the Ward 5 councillor, do the parklets, really look at the parklets. I won't speak for both of us, but we have not been focused on the sidewalks, but there's a couple different things. One is, do you think that the ordinance is defective or insufficient or needs update or and then there's an administrative ask, which is, do we want to ask the clerk to have a formal sidewalk application separate from a parklets for these kind of gray ones where clearly they are operating under the where no material changes and the clerk sort of saying yes, but it's ministerial and it's not papered. Do you want that? We could certainly codify the administrative part in the ordinance, but generally I bet if you just talk to the clerk and said for 2027 we want to have separate apps and everybody has to apply for everything, I'm sure that could be made to happen. I'm very confident it could happen, just probably, it's not now, not tonight.
Just not now. All right, so we are back to application 310. Is there further discussion? All right.
Let's vote.
All those in favor of approving application 310, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right. Councilor Delay.
All right, I would actually like to offer a motion to collectively approve applications 311, 312, 313, 314, 315, 316, 317, and 319. I did intentionally exclude 309 at this time.
Second.
You excluded 309, 317, and 318, right?
311,
I think 317 was in that list.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was, sorry. So
Yes.
309 and 318.
318 we already received and filed. Yep.
Okay.
I would just offer, in general, that there was no in-person or online public comment during our meeting, either generally or for a specific application. This is at our meeting. We did receive a number of emails from residents, most of whom were specifically concerned with the request from La Rosa's to use the public space in front of their restaurant. That's why I pulled this aside. We did also receive written comments from former Councillor Donahue, which were posted to our meeting page. Councillor Nikotich was also present to represent the concerns and interests of Ward 2 and downtown businesses and residents. So the applications that are before us, we asked each of the parklet applicants specifically, was the application complete, including a butter notification? Were the renderings accurate? In some cases they were, in some cases they weren't, and we asked them to resubmit current drawings. Does the setup allow for the required 5 feet of egress, particularly where sidewalk tables were shown on the maps, and also how boundaries were created to separate seating from the walkway, and any prior issues related to accessibility. The committee elevated concern for congestion where there are 2 or more adjacent parklets as well. We looked at insurance certificates and also made sure that the city was named as additional insured and that parklet fees have been paid. So in all cases, these applications that I've put forth to approve collectively were not the subject of any public comment or debate during our meeting, and we voted 3-0 to approve.
Councillor Nikitich.
Could I please have a reading of the motion to know which applications are included in this?
So this is a motion to approve application 311 for Paddle Inn, application 312 for Brine, application 313 for Carmine, application 314 for Bar 25, application 315 for New Kitchen, application 316 for Loretta, application 317 for Angry Donut, and application 319 for the Port Tavern.
So I would like to make a friendly amendment to remove from this motion 314, 315, 317.
That takes a vote of the body for a unanimous vote, otherwise it would have to be a singular
15,
amendment.
317, what was the third one?
314, 315, and 317?
To be, yes, to be removed from this
separate.
group.
You could just withdraw your motion and make it again if you're okay with it.
I can do that.
You can split, you can withdraw
Okay.
and split.
Yeah. All right, I will withdraw the motion, and I will instead offer a motion to collectively approve, you're going to have to help me, 311, 312, 313,
Skip.
316,
And 319.
and 319. I need a second.
Second.
Councillor Zede?
Two things. One is just a very quick, hopefully yes or no. Did any of these did the committee detect any changes, material changes to any of these applications from the prior year?
No.
No, okay. Second question is, how can we need to include any amended diagrams into you need to update the order to represent any ones that were changed that we're approving, just like we just did with the poll. So I'm unfortunately I don't know enough to make a proper motion if any of these had an amended or resubmitted one, but my general motion would be, subject to the most recently submitted image or depiction as reviewed by license and permits, if we can't be more specific than that. But basically, we want to just codify that we're approving the right one, the newest one.
Clerk Sullivan, do we have the...
So the only one that came in that changed was Loretta. The one from Angie's, he just basically took off the date. It's the same drawing.
That one's already
So that
done,
one's
right? We
done. So
approved,
the only one of this group is Loretta.
So I would make a motion to replace the diagram with the one in custody of the clerk.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of, discussion on Loretta? All those in favor of replacing the diagram for Loretta, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, so we're back to,
So the motion on the floor is to collectively approve 311, 312, 313, 316 as amended, and 319.
right. Further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. One no.
I have 309, 14, 15, 17.
All right, we'll take up the rest in order then individually, beginning with a motion to approve application 309.
Second.
This application 309 is for La Rosa's. I did hold this one aside because it was subject to a lot of email submittals expressing concerns. There was nobody here other than the applicant at the meeting on this application. The committee members did ask the clerk about the space in front of the restaurant and its consideration as a parklet rather than a sidewalk. I think we've heard that it's been treated since its inception as part of the parklet program. The request here is to use 600 square feet of the public way. That is the same as last year. Can't speak to prior to that. They've also received approval from the Parks Commission, as an aside, to use the parcel behind the restaurant on In Street. Given the prior precedent that's permitted this use at the location without any formal complaints and no material changes, the committee voted to approve this 3-0.
Thank you, Councilor July. Councilor Khan.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel like I remember questioning this too, maybe even last year, but when we first, and this one I remember specifically when it was Vera, we had only approved the one up against the building row. It was not 2 tables deep. And I think at that time, there was no appetite to modify. But I do want to raise and just bring up, I think the reason I did mention it's the removal of the benches. And as folks know, Market Square, there are just limited benches for people who are sitting and enjoying, especially during the summer months. And my question would be, with the benches that are removed, are they being located within that Market Square? And is there a location for them, or do they get taken out and then be put back in when the season's done? And I don't know if that could be answered by our DPS director, if they know.
I know this was discussed at the Parks Commission meeting, I believe, and I didn't go to that meeting, so I'm going to speak just from what I understand, that they said they were going to relocate the benches. Am I understanding that correctly?
Michael Hennessy said they could.
They could.
Yeah, but they're also in the process of being rehabbed.
Right.
Which is a volunteer process, I believe.
Well, the Community Improvement Society has been helping with that, yeah. Yeah.
So they did talk about it. I guess the Councilor Callahan knows here. So but when they do get rehabbed, then there's an appetite to put them back, is what the understanding was.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is what you've seen on the internet somewhere in Market Square, yes. I don't know if, and that's not really up to me to tell the Parks Department where to put them, but I don't know if it's necessarily in the exact same spot they were. And again, this is going on like 6 years ago that they were removed.
Councilor Z.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just definitely controversial last year. It was 6-5. What I'm not understanding is math. So if you look at the picture of the thing, it shows 25 feet by 40 feet.
15.
Is that 15 or 25? All right, 15. So we didn't find out what it was the year before to the clerk? Because I thought we were looking at that.
I don't have that number.
I think it's the same, though, right?
It's the same drawing.
As last year.
Application's the same as last year.
Yes, but last year was a controversial year, so I wanted to go back one more year to understand what it was.
So there wasn't one the year before.
It was like 300, though.
It was a couple years back when it was Vera.
It was the one row.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll yield there. Good enough.
For Councilor Hall and Councilor Nikitic.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the part about the option to put in tables on in-street. Is it that the Parks Commission is allowing it, but they're not choosing to put tables there? Or that's just not part of this? I just want to understand.
Sure, Councilor Delay.
As I understand it, they are intending to use it. That parcel is under Parks Commission jurisdiction as opposed to City Council. They are, how many tables they're planning to put there is conditioned on, I think, what happens with this parklet application.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Councilor Nikitic.
So at the License and Permits meeting, the representative of LaRosa's said that he was willing to bring the front parklet down to 420 square feet. And I know that last year, actually, what the council was asking for was for it to go down 300 square feet. But at least this was an offer, and and 420 square feet, 600 square feet, I think the problem that people are having, and I mean the public, or some members of the public, is the idea that whatever they get is somehow reserved for them. That's what they asked the Parks Commission for. Permanent removal of benches that would be in the way of their 600 square foot parklet. And I really don't think that was the spirit of outdoor dining, that we were giving space, promising space in perpetuity to certain restaurants. So it is still, it's still a public upset. I think it would have been nice to accept what might have been a, you know, a olive branch on this year's parklet size. And the gentleman representing them said that they will probably have, they want a total of 150 tables, and if they get the, yeah, well, no, excluding, he has 70 tables inside. So he would like an additional 80 tables outside. So if he gets the 30 here, 50 will go in the back. Wow. And if you need to double the size of your restaurant to succeed, there's something wrong with your year-round rent.
Further discussion on 309 specifically. Councillor Hall.
Is there any possibility to amend this, or is it like the other?
We tried to last year.
I would say not at this moment. I'm sorry, Councillor Hall.
Okay.
On the floor.
I'm just thinking about, Councillor Khan, you were saying in the past there was like a single row of tables. I would be much more comfortable with that, especially knowing that there is the option of additional tables on In Street.
So you can make an amendment to like cut that area in half?
If I may, yeah, then I would make a motion to cut that area in half.
Okay.
If you could just use a square footage number?
So reduced from 600 to
So
300?
from 600 to 300, if that would suffice.
And was there a second for that?
Second.
Discussion. Councillor Harmon.
Well, it sort of may be fun to opine about what it's like to run a restaurant. I've never done it, and I imagine that forecasting revenue in the busiest time of year hinges on access to additional tables, and for us to make a change unilaterally without the individual here to stand up for their business and the needs to sustain their business, which brings meals tax to our city, I certainly can't support this. I might be able to support 425, given that there was some indication that the restaurant owner could be comfortable with that, but just cutting it in half doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, Councillor Zeid, and then Councillor Trock.
Yeah, I have
This
to
is on
say,
the amendment still.
yeah, I'm still confused by the math in the first place, because the number of tables, 8 tables at 30-inch square, that's 600 square feet for just the table, so I don't understand that. But on the motion itself, I would offer to the sponsor that we should do 420 square feet. I think there's something to be said about, meeting in the middle kind of thing, and I supported 300 last year, which was, thought to be the one row. Clearly, it's more complicated than that, right? It's not just slice it off. I think that would be a nice gesture, and it would certainly earn my support. So I'm suggesting that to the sponsor in the second, that they may consider that if they wish.
I could withdraw my second and support that.
So
Same, I can
amend to
accept the friendly amendment to 420.
So if you withdraw and then change
Withdraw
it,
my
so-
motion and accept the friendly amendment to change to 420.
Second.
420?
Is that's the number that was stated from committee?
Yeah, that's what I have in my notes.
Okay. All right, so the discussion on the floor is the amendment to 420. Further discussion. Councillor Trock.
Yeah, perhaps the chair of licenses and permits could review that discussion for us, because about what the restaurant owner said he might be comfortable with. I am very uncomfortable voting on this without hearing directly from the restaurant owner. It seems incredibly unfair. So, but I at least would like to hear a little recap of the discussion that was had, if you
So,
can.
with all due respect, I believe the restaurant owner has his hand raised.
I would very much like, through the chair, to direct a question to the restaurant owner about how he feels about this and what he might think about that reduction.
Mr. Camerata.
President, can I make a motion to waive Rule 2B?
Yep. I was wondering who was going to do that. All those in favor of waiving 2B, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Mr. Camerata, we're going to allow you to speak.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I was in the meeting, physically there, I had to leave, so I apologize for that. So, I wasn't at the last meeting, that was my business partner, Paul, and he did mention that he is flexible with the space, but to go from 600, which has been the exact same footprint that's been there year after year since COVID, from Vera into the Roses was last year, to not have that space is completely detrimental to our business. We do 30% of more than 30% of the revenue comes from that outside front space in the summertime. And without that, I can't hire all the kids from Newburyport, I can't hire our adults that work in the management team, and it's just, it's a very, very impactful to the business. I don't know what else to say. I'm trying to be completely transparent and forward with the committee, but to put one row of tables essentially seals up a very bad business atmosphere for us at that location.
Thank you, Ms. Councilor Todd.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
One follow-up question, yep.
Thank you. My follow-up question is specifically about what I believe the amendment was to 420 square feet.
Yes.
Any thoughts about that from the owner? That question?
So, I guess I'd have to go out there and remeasure. That's about, what, a quarter less than we had last year. Actually, a little bit more than a quarter less. So that's a significant amount of tables less. And if we don't want 100, the Ward 2 representative said 170 tables. That's not the case. It's the most that we could have, and I had to get a state variance, is 150 seats total, and that would include some in the back. But honestly, the back at the moment is irrelevant. Without the front, we can't do anything for it. It's that impactful, and I don't know what else to say or position this. In regards to the benches, we were at the Parks Committee meeting, and they had said that they were going to relocate the benches. There was a bunch of public comment at that meeting saying that the Roses wanted to take over entire Market Square, which in itself is ridiculous. I think it was misrepresented publicly what our intentions were, but our intentions are quite simple, and that is just to repeat what we had last year, which I don't know that we received any complaints. I don't know that the city received any complaints. We tried to make it look beautiful with flower boxes, and certainly much nicer than Vera and the restaurant before Vera. So I don't know if I can answer anything else specifically.
If I just made one comment, because I was there.
Callahan?
Thank you. The drawings, again, almost nobody submitted architectural drawings. It's like, written with a Sharpie, right? And I believe many of them, you see all these 6-foot markings, it was COVID-related distancing, spacing. So Mr. La Rosa, Mr. Camerata's business partner who was there, I believe he said to me in front of his restaurant he could go back to the light pole as the outer barrier, which is, I'm guessing from this not-to-scale drawing, like 3 feet, if that makes sense. And I believe Mr. Camerata, that's what Mr. La Rosa was referring to. He could go from the light pole as a corner and then go to the edge of the frontage, and that's the rectangle, which I believe is probably the 420. Which is probably the 420, I think.
Yeah, I think if we pulled it in a little bit from the side where the Bentley real estate office is, and we went, closer to Inch Street, we inched that way. I mean, I don't, in terms of like what that does in the square, in terms of pedestrian movement or anything, I don't know that I believe that has zero impact.
Right.
But because you wouldn't be walking around on that side anyways, but.
Right, if I can, just because I was at both meetings, so I'm sorry, but if, this is ridiculous, right? This light pole, the straight line going across there, not quite to the Bentleys, was what Mr. La Rosa said could work. So you're bringing your barrier in, whatever that distance is, and the spaces between the tables are different, and that was kind of the whole point. And that, I believe, also brings it off of Parks Department property and onto the public way, which is technically a sidewalk in front of the building.
So, Councilor Chalk.
Yep.
I think what this discussion is showing us is that it is fundamentally unfair and unworkable to try to change these numbers on the fly when people were not expecting to do it. I will not support this amendment.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yeah, I apologize if I misspoke. I thought I had said that total tables would be 150 with 50 in the back and a desired 30 in the front. So my notes from the meeting are that Mr. LaRosa said that the 420 square foot footprint, he would lose a table or two. So I also have 2 feet off the front written down. So I think that Councillor Callahan is probably right, that it was just a matter of shifting the front to the light pole. So this isn't changing, this is actually agreeing with something the applicant said he was willing to do at the License and Permits Committee meeting. It's not, I understand that Mr. LaRosa isn't Mr. Camarada, so maybe they didn't talk, but this is what Mr. LaRosa said.
Thank you, Councillor Nikotich. Councillor Delay.
I just want to clarify from my memory, and I did not review the tape again before this meeting, but my recollection is not that the applicant offered the 420, but was asked if the 420 could be accommodated. So I think that's relevant.
Okay. Councillor Hall.
Can you share the response? His response.
The response was pretty
you.
much what Councilor Nikotich said, that it would impact their business, and specified by how many approximate tables.
All right, so the motion on the floor is the amendment to go to 420. Further discussion? All right, do a roll call on Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to know what exactly, I'm trying to dig into last year's notes from April 22nd, and I do remember lots of kerfluffle, lots of amendments that were voted down, a motion to table that was voted down, and then we approved something, which I'm trying to find out. I mean, I want to approve whatever we approved last year. It sounds like...
It's this. What's the application that's here right now?
And again, the benches, I thought got settled, at least for last year, and they should definitely be settled this year. So if those two, that's what I want to vote in favor of, and therefore I won't be voting for this amendment.
Chief of Staff?
If I may, I don't think that the benches are settled quite yet. I don't think it's been said. I don't think it's fair to say that they are settled, nor were they settled last year. They were, they're being rehabbed and stored by DPS. I think it's still a question as to where they may be relocated, if that's the decision of where they're going to be, if they are going to be relocated. If I may opine, if there is a reduction, my thought would be, is the purpose of the reduction so that you could have the benches put back where they were? Or would it just be to reduce the impact on Market Square?
And if I may, there's no indication they're coming back this summer, no matter what happens.
Councillor Khan?
Yeah. So, I think understanding everything, and I hear folks, they're planning around this, and they're planning around last year. So I know I offered the second on it, but I will support the 600. So I will not support the 420, because let me tell you, my intention is the benches, really. Mm-hmm. There was, and I want people to understand this, where by us passing it and saying, well, people are always going to expect what they got last year, we got to say stop somewhere. And how do we do that? So obviously the committee, a lot of this should be happening in committee, and maybe up front, letting the owners know, because this is not their fault about the benches. And I'm recognizing that as we're hearing, it's really a separate ask that's going to come from the administration and following up with the administration or the Parks Commission or however. But that is an angst with people, and I especially people who have name dedications. I mean, and spent money to have name dedications, and they're not anywhere. I think we should all feel bad about that. We took their money, and now we're like, where are these benches? But it's not to punish La Rosa for this. So I recognize that during this debate. So I will not support the 420. I will let them stay with the 600. But I do want us, and maybe it'll be on me to follow up on the benches. But we do need to also set up policy that a year from now, we're not going to say, well, we have to still do this. I really do want us to have a conversation on it broadly.
That, I think, will happen in the near future. Now, Councillor Zede had his hand up, and I see Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I just have to say something, because we're forgetting there's like another person in the room, and that's the residents of the city of Newburyport. And I think that's I own a business, not in the restaurant. I'm very respectful of the challenges, trials, and tribulations of running a business. It's hard, but the residents are not responsible for the revenue of a restaurant. They're not, and this is public space. And I've never gone to bed once and felt bad about fighting fiercely for like what is the public space and retaining it. And the more you give, the more is taken. That's how this works. I mean, last year it was 6 to 5, and the same discussion was had that next year, 600 may be too much, but we'll talk about it next year. And then here we are now, and I think the at-large councillor said it, at some point, like, when does it stop? But then the more the precedent builds, the harder it is to break, and to your point, people then spend a year. So I was just trying to suggest that this sounded like a nice olive branch. Does it get the benches back? I'd like to hope so, but I'm not stupid and think that that's a guarantee. But even if it doesn't, it's a restoration of some of the public space back to the public in a balanced way. And I thought that I took it as an understanding from the owner of what the ask was in an olive branch. That's why I said, let's not go to 300. That's a little bit harsh. If there's a willingness to move it back to a light post, it sounds like what it does is reduce the space between the tables. That's how I interpret it, less so than maybe reducing the number of tables altogether. But the public, it's public space. That's what it is.
Councillor Hall.
I was also trying to preserve the public space for the public good. That was my intention as well, but reading the room, I will withdraw the amendment.
Okay. All right, so we are back to 600 square feet for application 309.
Oh, yes, I'll withdraw my second, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Zede.
My last word is just, I want to be consistent, and I was one of the 5 last year that voted no on this exact thing. Another councillor stated they want to approve the same thing. I guess we meet again, so see you next year.
Okay. All right, so as the application stands, we are at application 309, 600 feet, what we're looking at in front of us. No other discussion? Let's vote. Roll call.
Application 309 at 600 feet. Councillor Zede.
No.
Councillor Callahan.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
Councillor Delay.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
No.
Councillor Herman.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich.
No.
Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Track.
Yes.
Councillor Shand.
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
7 yes, 4 no, motion passes.
Motion to approve application 314.
Second.
Application 314 is for Bar 25. This is 280 square feet of parklet space, 10 tables, 36 chairs. It includes tables on Threadneedle Alley. That is what they are charged for. It also includes sidewalk tables on State Street. The committee approved this by a vote of 3-0.
Discussion. Seeing no hands, all those in favor of approving application 314, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Motion to approve application 315.
Second.
Application 315 is for new kitchen. This is 320 square feet on Pleasant Street. There are no sidewalk tables associated with this request, and the committee voted to approve this 3-0.
Thank you. Discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving application 315, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Motion to approve application 317.
Second.
Okay. Application 317 is for Angry Donut. This is 100 square feet, 5 tables, 20 chairs on In Street, not under the Parks Commission jurisdiction. And the committee voted 3-0 to approve this application.
Discussion. All right. All those in favor of approving application 317, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
You got them all.
I think that's all our applications. We have new applications before us, and I just wanted to add, just kind of in some of this conversation, something that the committee realized during its deliberations as well, is that we have some work to do here. As a public policy, do we want to treat different public spaces consistently, absent a legitimate public purpose to do otherwise? And it seems reasonable that we examine these inconsistencies between the ordinances and our practice and address these as we head into next year's process for approving applications for parklets and sidewalks.
Thank you, Councilor July. All right, planning and development.
Motion to approve appointment 655.
Second.
This is Jared Hubbard, being appointed to the Newburyport Housing Authority. Mr. Hubbard appeared at our meeting on April 21st. Among his volunteer activities in the community, he is a noted housing advocate. He also has a legal background. The mayor did approach him to fill this position at, which I believe is Mayor Reardon's first appointment to the Newburyport Housing Authority. He's eager to get involved and understand how he can be of help. There was some discussion during the Q&A with committee members around the need for more transparency and desire to see NHA on a firmer footing. We are hopeful that Mr. Hubbard's service will help us get there. He was appointment runs through May 16th, 2031, and it was approved 3-0 out of committee.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Any further discussion? Councilor Smith?
Just a clarification question. How many members are on the, appointed by the City of Newburyport to the Housing Authority?
4.
4? And do we have full membership?
And one by the governor.
Okay. I guess second question, do we have full appointments to this body?
So
We were not told. There's a lack of information. So we're hoping that Mr. Hubbard will bring that forward. For further discussion on the committee deliberation, we noted that their meeting minutes are not updated since 2022. It's impossible to find up-to-date information on the membership of the commission itself. Again, I believe that is the spirit in which Mr. Hubbard's being appointed.
Yeah, I will speak to that a little bit. The administration has fielded a number of complaints from residents and others, and on housing authority properties. They're managed and accountable to the state primarily, and although police and fire both get called over regularly for different issues, we have reached out a number of times to the folks at the state and the folks who are managing the property, and we have a lot of difficulty in getting answers or responses. We have also found that meetings, minutes, and things of that nature are not readily available. And so we are hoping that this will be an appointment that will bring some accountability.
Thank you. Further discussion? All right, roll call.
Roll call on appointment 655, Jared Hubbard to the Newburyport Housing Authority. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delay?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Track?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Motion to approve appointment 662.
Second.
Thank you. This is Mark Sendron, his reappointment to the Newburyport Historical Commission. Mr. Sendron also joined our meeting on the 21st, where he shared about his love of the history and architecture of Newburyport. He's enjoyed his last few years on the NHC, facilitating and advising on projects. During Q&A, he cited some opportunities to clarify definitions and processes related specifically to the demo delay, which happens to also be before P&D currently. His appointment is through May 1st, 2029. It was approved 3-0 out of committee.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Discussion? All right, roll call.
Appointment 662, Mark Sendron to the Historical Commission. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Callahan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Delay?
Yes.
Councilor Hall?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Track?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Motion to approve ordinance 220.
Second.
Thank you. This is an amendment to the Downtown Overlay District. The committee first discussed this effort to clarify this effort, which is to clarify the DoD protections for a subset of buildings, which were perhaps erroneously miscategorized during the large-scale effort in the 1980s that led to the creation of the Newburyport Historic District. That was earlier in April. We then went before the joint public hearing with the Planning Board on April 15th. This is a small adjustment that accounts for about 20 buildings, 20 exactly, currently listed as, quote, minor contributing, and if adopted, would provide the same zoning rules and protections as the DoD for those buildings as well. Ultimately, after 2 meetings on this topic and the approval of the Planning Board, the committee decided to recommend it for approval by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Further discussion? Roll call.
So this is to approve ordinance 220 on first reading. Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Shand?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
That's it for P&D. We have our second joint public hearing tomorrow evening in this building at 6 p.m. Venue and time changed from usual if you're interested in attending. I do expect there to be updates on zoning 218, which is the ZBA discretionary review, and 221, dimensional requirements. So come and enjoy that if you would like. Our next regular meeting is May 5th. Where we will anticipate continuing our discussion of demo delay ordinance 217 and the preservation restriction we brought in tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Khan?
Yes, sorry, everyone. I am going to try to invoke Rule 7F again for appointments 658, 659, and 660 to approve them on first reading. These are all reappointments to the Harbor Commission. And if I get a second, I'll keep going.
Second.
Great.
So point of order, these will be their second readings.
Oh, I thought it's first reading.
First was going in, second's
Oh,
coming
okay,
out.
yeah, second reading. Perfect. Thank you.
So do we need to vote on 7F first, or is that a mega motion?
Invoking Rule 7F for the...
Invoking Rule 7F. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Oh, yeah, so motion to approve on second reading appointments 658, 659, and 660.
Second.
Yes, so thank you. So these are all reappointments, and I think one of the things to understand is there are some things that automatically go to Public Works and Safety, and they're in our rules, and I was just double checking that in our ordinances. And Harbor Master is the only one when it comes to Harbor Commission. The Harbor Master is the one that comes to our committee. So I'm hoping the committee is okay with this, but these are reappointments, and just to kind of keep the docket somewhat manageable, I would appreciate if folks would be open to accepting them. And we have seen them all before, and they've been doing this for a while, especially Ron Thurlow has been there for probably the longest.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Further discussion? All right, roll call.
So this is roll call to collectively approve appointment 658, James Knapp to the Harbor Commission, appointment 659, Robert Dow to the Harbor Commission, and appointment 660, Ronald Thorough to the Harbor Commission. Reappointments. Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Callahan.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
Councillor Delai.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Track.
Yes.
Councillor Shand.
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Good of the order.
Anything?
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. In terms of committee, our last meeting was on Coffin Street. I am finishing up the notes for that. There's a lot to update, but I will save it for maybe next time. And then our next meeting is May 4th. And our intention is we do have the two poll requests, which I think will have a lot of conversation. And then we were also going to have the Low Street Bike Audit Report and invite Newburyport Livable Streets, and I think one other thing came to our committee, and ad hoc. Yes, the ad hoc. So that will probably keep us pretty busy. So that's May 4th at 6:30. Thank you.
All right, good of the order. Councillor Zede.
Just very quickly, I don't think, you don't motion to invoke a rule. The rules are always positive. The rule you're trying to waive is Rule 16, which is that you got to get stuff in the packet. So I would just urge caution. This is like a late file. You're begging OML because you're basically taking something out onto the floor that wasn't nobody knew that it was going to come, and counselors themselves don't prep for ones that aren't in bold. So I think we understood what we were doing tonight, and we did it intentionally, which is why I didn't say anything until now, but it would more like be a waive Rule 16,
Okay.
which is the typical late file one, to bring something out of committee that wasn't otherwise anticipated and isn't in the packet.
Okay, thank you. So, Rule 16. Councillor Smith.
So one quick thing, so in our budget workshop, we talked about financial policy and adopting and reviewing those. I think CPC is a great opportunity to discuss as a body on kind of what we would like to see moving forward, especially in light of some of the discussions tonight. So whenever we earmark a date, maybe after budget season, I would really love to talk about that more. Thank you.
Okay. They did say that we would have, post-mortem sounds like an awful way to put it, but they did want to have a,
Second.
No. In June, July, after budget season, Director Sorrow did want to have a discussion about how things went. So that's probably a good time to bring it up there as well. All right, so with that being said, we done?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.